Big hole for Jonathan Taylor. There he goes again. 50, 40, down the far sideline. He might do it again. 10, 5, touchdown. I-N-D-Y.
The Indiana Pacers are in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Joseph Newgarden goes back-to-back, wins the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Good morning. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I had a chance to just catch my breath, take a deep breath. And now we get ready to look forward to Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Good morning, Kevin Bone and James Boyd and Mark Dykton. How's that second day waking up? It's always the second day back waking up that's tough.
I didn't set my alarm for 4:30 in the morning, so it's doing much better than yesterday.
That's all good. KB. So, because I'm going to go play golf later on today with some of the guys from the ESPN broadcast crew. Mark Kestisher, my buddy, and I are going to go play golf.
Do you need a fourth?
I think I was the fourth. Somebody canceled.
Okay.
But I don't think I was the
Do you
original.
need a four caddy?
Maybe. I'll do the caddy. I hit golf balls for the first time in 2 years since my shoulder rebuild yesterday.
And how are you feeling?
It didn't fall off. Predictable rust on the swing, but not too bad.
Okay.
So I think I'll be able to at least ham and egg it around the course today. I'm looking forward to it. But, yeah, there's another day off. Like, how do you guys feel about all these days off in between games?
Well, I guess, I don't know. James and I were kind of talking on the elevator. It's actually going to be a pretty busy day for us. We'll be over there at Colts for minicamp. The Irsay girls will meet the media later today. The Pacers have practice. So, yeah, I mean, I guess at night it is off. But at least from a selfish, can we get closer to, Wednesday night, it will be a busy, busy day for us.
And there's a lot going on at the Colts that we have to talk about today, too. I guess the official transfer of titles and roles and everything else after the passing of Jim Irsay to his three daughters, James Boyd. And it's pretty much the way it's looked kind of behind the scenes for a while now, correct? There's nothing major as a change going on there, is there?
No, Carly Irsay Gordon, the oldest daughter, she will be the owner/CEO. She'll act as the principal owner. Casey Foy will be the owner and executive VP, and then Kaylin Jackson will be the owner and chief brand officer, as well as the president of the Colts Foundation. So this was all a formality. It just took a formal announcement yesterday, and obviously we will meet with them later today to hear their thoughts for the first time since their father passed. And so on one hand, what does it mean for the franchise? What does it look different, from you compared to your father, things like that. But obviously, for those who were kind of interested, like, oh, man, are they going to sell? No, they never will. This was supposed to be in the family, and it'll stay in the family.
That was the big thing from yesterday, right, Kevin? The definitively, we're not going anywhere. We were never going anywhere, right?
Yeah, I thought James summed it up very well. For those unfamiliar with how the NFL operates, each team has to have a succession plan on file, and, I think it's always been a given that this is what would happen with the Irsay family, that Carly Irsay Gordon, who, for those unfamiliar which one she is the one you see on the sidelines at practice or games. She has been, I would say, the leader of the business side of the organization for, the last 10 to 15 years, and even on the football side is heavily involved. Now she is the principal owner, as James pointed out there. So I think she will be the lead decision maker, the lead, voice at NFL meetings. Lean on her sister certainly, but I think she will be the most, I don't know if front-facing is the right way to describe it, but I think she will be the main decision maker when it comes to the big stuff that you think about with running an NFL franchise.
Yeah, because day-to-day, Chris Ballard's still the guy in charge of football, and Pete Ward's the guy in charge of just day-to-day business, making sure that everything gets taken care of and executing campaigns and stuff like that.
Yeah,
correct?
I would say she's definitely going to be in on the football decisions as well, though.
Yeah, she's above
sure.
Chris Ballard.
Yep.
She's above Pete Ward, just to clarify. Yeah,
and she grew up on the football field, not playing, but she's been around with her dad forever.
She's been in these positions. She's been on NFL panels, committees, things like that. So there are years and years in the making of. This wasn't something that, oh, by the way, you got to have this job when I pass. She's been groomed and set up for this, and I believe she wants this as well. And obviously, I'm curious to hear her thoughts on the state of the franchise as they get ready for another season.
All right. Pacers also getting back to work today to get ready for Game 3 tomorrow night over at the Fieldhouse. KB, what do you think the practices look like for the Indiana Pacers? What are they most going to focus on?
Well, I guess first we'll start with just making sure Tyrese Halliburton is practicing. Again, we saw him lipping off the podium there at the end of the game on Sunday night. Now how do you handle tweaks and adjustments within the series? I think that is one of maybe the more difficult things for a coaching staff within a playoff series. how much do you sit there and say, hey, wait a minute, we've gotten to the NBA Finals. Guys, we have one of the best records in the NBA since January 1, one of the two best. Like, we're going to continue to do what we do. Or do you say, hey, we can't be foolish. You got to adapt or die. If you don't adjust, this isn't the New York Knicks. This isn't the Cleveland Cavaliers, a little bit banged up. This isn't the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, we have to adapt. I think that's one of the more challenging things for a coaching staff in general throughout the playoff series. Like, for example, you saw both teams go a little zone in Game 2. Is that something you see a little bit more here in Game 3? Obviously, the Halliburton angle and how you get him going will be a big storyline as well. So Rick Carlisle scheduled to join us coming up here at 8 o'clock. The Pacers will practice later this morning. The Thunder will practice after that at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and we get closer to Wednesday night. Is it still 4.5 points? Is that the line? I look at Mark Dykton for our degenerate answers.
I haven't looked this morning. It was 4.5, 24 hours ago. I haven't looked since then.
I'm going to say it climbed. Even though I haven't looked, I'll say it climbed a little bit.
You think 5 now?
Yeah,
let's
say 5.
5.
Okay.
So what was it? 11 in Game 2, 9 in Game 1?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll take a few points off, I guess, for being in Indiana.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised
I don't know.
by
But
that.
look, here's the way it works, though, also in the NBA Finals. You're playing a team that won 68 games. I know you had a relatively easy time in the first 3 series, but getting that last one it was never going to be easy, James. It was never going to be just, let's steal a few games here and defend home court. I don't think it works that way against a team that won 68 games.
No. But obviously, if you are a Pacers fan, you're like, wait a second. We did this in every other series when it comes to taking a 2-0 lead. But to your point, Jeff, I think getting out of OKC with the win, with how you've played so far, is certainly something you will be proud of or be happy about. Now you can dissect the process and say maybe we need to be better in this area, and they certainly do need to be better when it comes to a scoring standpoint early for Tyrese Halliburton, perhaps defending SGA differently or other players. But to be evened up 1-1, it counts all the same no matter how ugly the win is or how bad the loss is. So I am curious to see what adjustments Rick Carlisle will make. I don't expect him to share any of them on air with us this morning, so I have to make sure that the questions are on point. But there certainly has to be some sort of wrinkle or new change that we see from this team now that the series is back in Indiana.
Kevin, you guys will be talking to Rick Carlisle in about 50 minutes here, top of the hour. What are the 2 or 3 things you are most interested in hearing from him?
Well, yeah, I mean, James just hit on a little bit of it there. A little bit more on the Halliburton front. He is oftentimes, I would say, pretty much every time the Halliburton aggressiveness debate has been brought up, he more often than not has said, we've got to do things on our end to get him, a little bit more whatever, free or however you want to describe it. But, ironically, a quote that I brought up on the show, it played in as a lead-in to our show here on this Tuesday morning. He did mention after the game, too, that, they need their best players to be better. And specifically said Tyrese and Mascot, I think he actually threw Miles Turner into that group as well. So I don't think that part of his answer is typically one that I feel like we hear when, again, this general topic gets brought up. So what are his thoughts on that aspect of it?
Well, I'm looking forward to, look, we're just a little over 36 hours away, 36 and a half hours away from getting back at it, and I'm looking forward to Game 3, and I think that being at home clearly provides a little bit of advantage for the Pacers. I think Rick and that crew are really bright, and I think that they'll make some adjustments. I would expect the Pacers to play their best game of the series, to be honest with you, so far. They've really played their best for 9 minutes.
I was going to say the bar is pretty low, if I'm going to be honest, through 2 games.
Yeah,
I mean, of the 96 minutes, 85 of them have pretty much been controlled by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Have they not?
Yeah, no, great point. I mean, it's a simple point, but it is a good point because you really can't play too much worse. Knock on wood here, I guess, for the Pacers fans. But I would expect some adjustments. Now, what those will be, I'm not so sure because I don't expect like a lineup change like OKC did. I don't know what you can do differently from a lineup standpoint. I think it's maybe from a philosophical standpoint where I know they want Tyrese to be the initiator in a lot of these actions, but perhaps they can use some of those secondary actions they used in Game 2 towards the end where he kind of got going where it's like, hey, maybe we have Nembhard bring the ball up or Benedict Mathurin bring the ball up or somebody else and kind of get you moving and coming off screens or pin downs, whatever, to keep, OKC on edge, whereas you're not coming up and having to face a set defense. So a lot of that also has to do with getting stops. I mean, when you don't stop a team from scoring, they get to set their defense. So it goes hand in hand. But I'm curious to see what other wrinkles they throw out there for Tyrese offensively, because he is someone who can adapt. And this is another, challenge for a player of his caliber.
And Kevin, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh. They didn't play terribly in the second half of Game 2. They were just buried already by early part of the third quarter, and it was just kind of go back and forth from there on out. So maybe it's a little too harsh to say it's been all Oklahoma City. They certainly had the big spurt in Game 2, and the Pacers certainly had the wherewithal in Game 1.
Yeah, I mean, not to, I guess, nitpick, how many minutes the Pacers have been the better team. I think yesterday I often said, they've been the second best team in the series, 70, 75 minutes, out of the time.
Yeah,
I think that's
fair.
probably, pretty fair so far. And again, you can look at that in multiple ways. Hey, it's 1-1. You can look at that optimistically. The fact that they have been outplayed, I say that in quotes, for as much of the time as they have been, yet the series is tied at 1, and now you have home court, and now it's a best of 5, and you haven't lost back-to-back games in 3 months. And, you've responded from double-digit losses all year long. There are a lot of things to point to from an optimism standpoint with the Pacers, but as I tried to say a couple of different times yesterday, this is a different opponent. This is, I made the analogy yesterday, this is IU football playing Notre Dame in the playoff. This is different. And so how do you react to that? And, for Oklahoma City, how do they react to being on the road? I mean, this is a little different. It's the first time the Pacers have been tied in a series, all playoff-wise. We're used to them having these 2-0 leads. Do you play with more urgency? That, I think, is something that I'm looking forward to coming up tomorrow night.
All right, we'll talk about it throughout the morning here. We'll take your phone calls as well as we get ready to go for Game 3 tomorrow night of the NBA Finals. Got a check down coming up in just a minute. Rick Carlisle, top of the hour, right here. It's the Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton. I'm Jeff Rickard. Hang with us here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
7-5 The Fan.
Good morning. Welcome into the Fan Morning Show. We got you covered on what's happening today at something like that.
Huh?
Yeah, right?
What language are we speaking?
Not English. It's another day off for the Indiana Pacers. Got too much sleep last night, James. That's the problem. They'll be playing Game 3 of the NBA Finals, KB, tomorrow night against the Oklahoma City Thunder. We decided, 5-point favorites for the Thunder right now going into Game 3?
Yes, 5.
All right. We'll talk to Rick Carlisle about all the ins and outs and how they've handled the days off and the health of some players coming up at the top of the hour here. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Slight worry, JB, about Tyrese Halliburton after watching him kind of hobble off the podium the other night?
Yes, we'll get a chance to follow up with Rick Carlisle this morning and see what he says, if he has anything to update us on. But, yeah, certainly something to keep an eye on.
All right, Game 3, NBA Finals tomorrow night, right here on The Fan. You can listen to it live with Mark Boyle, and, of course, Pat Boylan will have the pregame at 8 o'clock. JMV just going to do a monster telethon tomorrow from 3 to 8. So any and all of us, feel free. Mark, you can call in, too. Give him a break as the show goes along. Speaking of Mark Dykton, Mark, you had some news from yesterday regarding F1 that kind of indirectly affects the Indianapolis 500.
Well, this came out overnight, so I was still sleeping in my bed. But it says, F1 confirms that the Canada Grand Prix will be held on the same day as the 110th running of the Indy 500 next year, May 24th, with Montreal now following Miami on the F1 calendar to improve the series' sustainability efforts. And then Nick Yeoman, obviously on the IndyCar, says, that's an act of war as far as I'm concerned, and they know it too. So obviously the race cars are rivaling right now. They're fighting.
Yeah. F1 didn't like that 7 million viewer number that the Indianapolis 500 got this past year.
Yeah, and I guess we should remind the audience, Monaco used to be also the day of the 500. However, that start time was early in the morning, whereas the Canadian Grand Prix, I would assume, is that the same time zone? I believe it's the same time zone as what we are here from an Eastern time zone standpoint. I don't know. I guess maybe if you did the start time like at 3 or 4, which is a little later, maybe it wouldn't be like the end of the world. 12:45, right? That was a scheduled green flag this past year. I guess you could lead into it. What F1's not on Fox, so yeah. I mean, I know you're not doing like programming wise, marketing for it, but yeah, that is not ideal considering Monaco was a much different time zone.
I liked waking up in the morning and watching the Monaco, at least the end of the Monaco race, before I started really getting 100% into the Indianapolis 500 too. So we'll see what happens.
I think Indy 500 drivers like that too. Help ease the morning along.
Kill some time. All right. The Indiana Fever off again yesterday, but they will play again tonight, this time in Atlanta. 7:30 airtime here on The Fan. 7:15, the Fan pregame show with Eddie Garrison. No Caitlin Clark again. They're saying they just want to make sure that this quad issue doesn't become a lingering, persistent thing throughout the year, right, James?
Yes, I believe this will be her 5th consecutive missed game. And I believe on top of that, Sophie Cunningham will also be sidelined as well. But we'll just see how it all kind of shakes out. To me, it kind of makes sense for them to wait at least until Saturday for Caitlin Clark to potentially return against the Liberty. That gives her even more time to kind of ramp up. And so other than that, other Fever news, Stephanie White was back at practice after missing the game against the Sky due to a family personal matter. Her and Lisa Salters are dealing with that, her partner over on the other network. So just keep them in your thoughts and prayers.
All right. Meanwhile, we've got some Colts news to talk about. We mentioned it at the top of the show, but Kevin Bowen, the official succession plan goes into place after the death of Jim Irsay over at the Colts.
Yeah, busy day over at West 56 today. Just kind of map everything out for you. They will start their mini camp, so we'll have day 1 of the mandatory session. This is the last week of the spring offseason program. They'll have an afternoon practice today. Following that, you will have Carly Irsay Gordon, the principal owner, Casey Foyt, and then Kaylin Jackson, the 3 daughters, all meeting the media, their respective roles. So first time we've really heard from them in any sort of media session, and boy, quite some time. I think, James, you even said it to me. You haven't been a part of a Carly Irsay media session in your time on the beat. So it has been a while, so we will hear from them coming up this afternoon. And again, Daniel Jones, your starting quarterback here, as Anthony Richardson is sidelined to close out the offseason program.
All right, Major League Baseball yesterday. The Phillies beat the Cubs by a score of 4-3. It took them 11 innings at least, Mark. They had to go overtime to do it.
That's okay.
Not overtime, but extra innings. Also, Cincinnati Reds Winning again, Kevin Bowen. They beat the Cleveland Indians. There's no stopping the big red legs now. That's right, Indians, Guardians. I'll do that forever. It'll take me another decade to get that one right, probably.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Hottest team in baseball.
Yeah, they are. I got so excited. That's all I was thinking about is red legs wins. That's it.
Shout out to the Racers of Murray State. I love the College World Series. I know that at this point of the news cycle here in our market, it's not like we're going to be talking about it a whole lot, but a little Cinderella story there in baseball. Murray State going to Omaha here for the College World Series. That was fun to watch that last night as they beat Duke to clinch their spot.
In Durham to go and get that. So they did it on the road there. And also for Alex out there, Toronto over the St. Louis Cardinals by a score of 5-4. The Indianapolis Indians were off yesterday. They will host the St. Paul Saints at Victory Field 7:05 tonight. So if you're looking to fill up your evening, James, that might be an option for you there.
Yeah, got to do something, right, to pass the time. Again, we counted on the sleeps last week, so one more sleep.
Yeah, and the Florida Panthers just mollywomped the Edmonton Oilers
right?
last night. 6-1. They scored in the first minute. They just kept scoring, and they take a 2-1 advantage. You watch any of that last night, Mark? You're shaking your head.
I did, but I was hoping for a more closely contested game like Game 2. Not double overtime necessarily, but a little more contested would have been nice.
That's what you needed after coming back from vacation, double overtime.
I was in the car when that game was happening, so it kept me awake. I was like, I'm going to keep listening to this.
All right, coming up in a minute, we'll talk more about Game 3 of the NBA Finals tomorrow night. Rick Carlisle coming your way at the top of the hour. It's the Fan Morning Show at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
James, you were talking in the break about the video over there at the Avon, Texas Roadhouse. It looked just like a Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze or something over there, man.
Yeah, I mean,
People flying over railings and all kinds of stuff going on.
I didn't know if we were going to touch on that during the show, but
it happened.
Excuse me, but yeah, that was crazy. That was a crazy video to see. Yeah, I would never act like that in public, but we can move on.
No, it's just you don't often see brawls in restaurants in your town.
No, seriously, that was insane.
That was crazy. We're hoping to see
the same fight from the Pacers tomorrow night, right?
Not
Is that
quite
our transition?
There. That's not quite where I was
transition.
going, but sure, we'll take that one. I was going to go a little bit around, but the Pacers do need to play a lot more like they did in the second half than the first half of the game the other night. They kind of held it steady, or maybe it was Oklahoma City. They're like, okay, we got the 15, 17, 19-point lead. We're just going to cruise on home. But let's put it this way. The Pacers have had enough comebacks that you weren't convinced, even though it didn't feel like it, you weren't convinced that they were completely done until there was about 8 minutes to go, right? And then after they just a third or fourth failed kind of little mini run, you kind of knew that wasn't the night.
Yeah, I just think you largely play with fire if that's what you're banking on. And you know, what stats can you point to from the first two games that have indicated the Pacers are not, being the aggressor or not playing through contact? James brought that up earlier in the show yesterday. I thought that was a good point to make. It seems like the Pacers are too lateral and not enough vertical, in this series offensively. It's just a lot of side to side and, points in the paint. I don't know if the Pacers are a, great team at that. If you look at, the regular season, they're kind of middle of the pack. They average about 50 points in the paint, for a regular season game, 34 each in these first two games. So that to me is an indicator of you're not getting downhill enough if you want to kind of continue, the lateral versus the vertical sort of atmosphere with this offense. So I think that is a huge key, and obviously so much of that can start with your point guard, getting downhill, getting 2 feet in the paint. We talked about that yesterday, how Tyrese Halliburton defines his level of aggression as that. So I would start there. When he is in attack mode and is making the defense have to react to him, I think that is when this offense is at their best. But, again, every time I've mentioned Halliburton here, I do have to credit the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, if you go back to that Denver series, Jokic had his smallest assist total in a playoff series in 4 years, I think it was. I mean, this is what they do. They are a historic defensive team, and through 2 games, they have done that to Tyrese Halliburton. They have stymied him. They have limited him. They have made him not be anywhere near as effective as we are used to seeing. So again, with the extra day off in between game 2 and 3, how do the Pacers counter that going into tomorrow night?
And I watched that entire Denver-Oklahoma City series, and the one thing that transfers to your point, Kevin, about their defense, we've talked about how long they are and lanky and how they get into passing lanes and how they're always jabbing at the ball and looking to knock it loose and keeping rebounds alive with that volleyball action. Tip it. If you can't get it, you tip it up, you keep it going, those kinds of things. What they did against Jokic is almost exactly what they're doing to Tyrese Halliburton. They are just making his life incredibly difficult to, A, get the ball sometimes, and B, once he does have it, they are really focused on cutting passing lanes off as much as anything else.
Absolutely, and I think what makes it even more unique for Tyrese compared to Nikola Jokic is so much bigger than his opponents, where he can just get in the post and look over his shoulder or shoot over the top of you, whereas Tyrese physically can't impose his will like a Luka Doncic could, or a LeBron James, or even like a Kevin Durant who has that size and length, or Giannis who's obviously very physical. So he has to counter it in different ways. So I wonder, again, does that mean you help him get off the ball, get downhill, and things like that? Because to me, the biggest thing with Tyrese is engagement and the ability to keep the flow going. And when he brings the ball up, at least throughout this series, they've kind of stymied a lot of their ball movement and pressure and things like that because he's not able to turn the corner at all. So do you help him turn the corner without the ball when he gets the ball? So I know that sounds a little nuanced and cliche, but I'm just very curious to see how they get him going towards the basket, to Kevin's point, because otherwise he's not able to just physically do it on his own.
Mm-hmm. And
he's not, and I would add too, I think your ability to pass your ball into the paint is more difficult against this team. Like some teams you can,
That's
just
true.
with your ball movement, find advantages. I think with this Oklahoma City team, it's more difficult to do that. Over the course of 82 nights, you don't see this very often at all. So you're able to, I think, eventually kind of find some cracks and get there. You don't have that built-in advantage. Certainly you had it last round against New York. I don't think it's anywhere near that with OKC.
I wonder if there's going to be like more like back screens or something like that, or pin downs, just little things.
A lot of off-ball stuff.
That kind of gets OKC off balance, perhaps, and gets them chasing rather than you being the kind of like the chased, if that makes sense. So, again, it is all going to come down to what wrinkles Rick Carlisle and company can kind of come up with. And to their credit, they've been good at that, very good so far throughout the playoffs.
Do you guys label tomorrow night as a must-win?
I do.
Yeah, I don't want to get behind the 2-1 of this team, especially after stealing the first game.
What if you got it to 2-2?
I feel a lot better about 3-1, but obviously,
can you, I guess let's go a step further. Can you exit this home 2-game stretch at 2-2? OKC would obviously have home court back in their back pocket, or do you feel like you have to be up 3-1 leaving here?
I don't think you have to be up 3-1. I think you have to be up 2-1, if that makes sense, because I don't know if they can play from behind in a series. Now, they've done it last year against the Knicks, but in the finals against this team, I don't trust them to come back and win this series. Not saying they can't win the series, but to come back and do it seems a little bit steeper to me because of the opponent. So, to me, it's 2-1 and then 2-2, or it's over.
I feel like if you get a win, a convincing win, not one where you just get the lead with 0.3 of a second left. Can you have a convincing win against this Thunder team?
You're getting greedy over there.
Well, I just feel like if it's another like lucky win or last second like victory, it's nice, but can you actually hang with the Thunder? I feel like you need a kind of a convincing win at some point.
So here's my question though. How much weight do you put on that? Because we can say, oh, the first win was last second, or maybe you can't replicate that, but it does count the same. So I always struggle with that myself when you get to this point in the playoffs.
So here's the way I look at this and why I think Game 3 is so important before you start talking about Game 4 is you stunned this team with that last-second comeback win in Game 1. They were stunned.
Right.
They did what they've done all year long after a loss like that, right? They came right back. They took control of the game. They, in their minds, I'm sure, took control of the series back again, even though that they don't have home court advantage right now. I think if you come out in Game 3 and put them back on that heel again, to your point, James, this is not a team you want to be playing catch-up to, but I think you need to put them on their back foot one more time. And now you go into Game 4 at home with a 2-1 lead, and you say to yourself, hey, we can really lay inroads here in Game 4. So I think, I don't think you come from behind or even against this Oklahoma City team. I think you need to get both these games.
We'll certainly see. But, yeah, your thoughts on that, Mark? It's hard for me because I'm always like, man, am I being too critical? Like, they're 1-1.
No, they do count the same. I agree. But I also think that, the whole Game 1, they're playing from behind. They got it the last second. So that was a nice win. That was a nice win that we didn't expect to see coming. Game 2, the Thunder said, okay, we're not playing around today. We're going to put our foot on their necks. And then Game 2. So if you're heading into the rest of the series, the Thunder play the pace that the Pacers have played against opponents all season long, but the Pacers couldn't counter the Thunder.
Yeah.
The Thunder seem to play with the pace that the Pacers like to play, but the Thunder do it better.
Yeah.
Can you counter that and take care of business in Game 3 or Game 4 or both? That would be nice. I'd be greedy like Jeff. I'll take a 3-1 series lead. I would just like to see a more dominant win. I don't want to see something where it's just like, well, they got lucky at the last second. They pulled it off. I feel like you need to start hanging with this team if you're going to have a chance of winning a championship.
I think the one thing, Kevin, I expect to see a lot better tomorrow night for the Pacers is the three-point shooting. They had some looks. They just didn't go down in Game 2. That's not the reason that they lost, but it was a contributing factor. I think they'll be much better and much closer to who they are at home tomorrow night.
Yeah, through the first 3 quarters the other night, you could have called that one of the worst Pacers shooting games of the entire season. I would agree. I don't expect that to continue. Of course, every time I'm met with a thought like that this series, again, I have to remind myself this is not your average defensive opponent. They do challenge things, and creating an advantage it's just hard to kind of hunt particular players. And again, to go back to the regular season with Tyrese Halliburton, this is what the Thunder did to him. And I know, just simply throwing out Tyrese's points and assists in a game, it's not everything, but I do think it allows for just a simple baseline of, okay, for everybody out there, this is what he's done point-wise, this is what he has done assist-wise. You don't get too nerdy into it. If you look at the 4 games for Halliburton against Oklahoma City this season, here in the playoffs, 17 points and 6 assists the other night. Of course, a lot of those points in the fourth quarter. 14 and 6 in game 1. So 17 and 6, 14 and 6 here in the 2 playoff games. In the regular season, 4 points and 8 assists in one game, 18 points and 3 assists in the other.
That's not Tyrese.
That is an average of 13 points and 6 assists in the 4 games against the Thunder. And again, he is sitting right now on 8 turnovers through 2 games, the most back-to-back turnovers he's had in a 2-game stretch all season long.
That's also a wild stat, by the way, considering how much he handles the ball. Like, you said this about Luka Doncic or LeBron James or any other really point guard in the league, I'd be like, okay, they had a couple bad stretches, but the first time all year, wow.
So I bring all that up to say, again, this team has made him look
very good point.
Pedestrian. I don't know. Maybe that sounds too harsh, but we're used to, and it's a credit to Tyrese. I mean, we are used to him creating such a lofty standard where there's a little bit of fall out of bed and he's scoring 20 and 10, and that has not happened at all. And it's not just, again, 13 and 6 with 0 turnovers or 1 turnover. Here in these 2 games, that turnover number is really, really high. I also think just kind of an intermediary goal for tomorrow night, just get the game back to the clutch. Put that pressure on OKC, put that on OKC away from home. That to me needs to be a constant ingredient throughout this series of, all right, here we go. You're feeling Gainbridge Fieldhouse and that atmosphere. What happens to a team on the road in the clutch? I thought I heard yesterday Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't play the fourth quarter in 20 games this season. What? I mean, put the Thunder into those moments. And in game 1, Shai wasn't, that perfect MVP down the stretch. Make the Thunder have to make critical plays in the final few minutes of the game. You didn't sniff that in game 2. You obviously benefited from it greatly in game 1. Let's see how they do if you get them into those situations on the road.
To your point, Kevin, for the postseason, including the first 2 games, which is going to bring those averages down, Tyrese still averaging 18 points and 9.3 assists per game. So those numbers well below what his norm even in the postseason has been. So they have changed, James, clearly the way he is able to play the game.
I would say that's more or less what he's averaged throughout the postseason, considering some of the dips he's had in other
series.
That's
what I'm saying. 18 and 9.3. That includes the first 2 games.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay, yes, right. Because throughout the finals, it has not been those numbers, and I think it's 15 and 6 or something like that. So I know that Tyrese is a unique player. I know that he won't respond by taking 35 shots, but he's got to do something differently, and I just wonder what that can be and how much of it is scheme versus mindset versus you just having to be a dude. Is it that simple? I'm not sure, but that's what makes the great players so great.
Stop getting so emotional, James.
Yeah, you all right over there?
I'm sorry. My voice is going because I'm fighting a cold, but
I think I have a throw loster over here, James, if you need it. 15 minutes, Rick Carlisle going to join us here. James and I
just can't get emotional with Rick Carlisle.
At West 56th Street later today. Can I go spin doctor on you on the Colts quarterback situation?
Sure.
When you hear doctor and Colts quarterback, it's never good, but go ahead.
That is probably a good point.
James and I over here, we just kind of got the little...
So thanks to the Pacers, we haven't really talked much about it. Anthony Richardson's situation. Again, he's out for the rest of the spring. AC joint aggravation of this right throwing shoulder that he had surgically repaired 20 months ago. None of that sounds good to me. He is going to miss, again, the rest of the spring, and at some point in training camp, the thought is he will be back. We'll see if there's any more updates from Shane Steichen today on that. But a worry that I had coming into this quarterback battle, and trust me, there are a lot of people out there who are going to be like, Kevin, worry. You don't need to say anything more than it's Anthony Richardson versus Daniel Jones. That's worrisome enough. But if you want to go a little bit deeper, Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones so far in their NFL careers have been two bad and or inconsistent quarterbacks, however you want to define them. My worry with this battle was you have two bad, inconsistent quarterbacks, and you're giving them inconsistent reps. So how could either get better? Like,
you mean when they were splitting reps?
Right. So coming into the competition, my concern was you have two dudes that need to get better, right? Well, you're asking them to split reps. How will either of them get tangibly better? I feel like you're just going to get to the end of the race and it's going to be like, well, there we go. I guess that one finished ahead of that one, but I feel like the bar hasn't moved at all. You could spin this and say it right now. Wait a minute. Daniel Jones is going to get 7 of the 9 spring practices here. What happens if you get to training camp? Let's say Richardson has got to ramp it up here through the first, week or two of training camp. And at that point, Shane Steichen might say, you know what? I've seen enough. Daniel Jones is going to be the starter. So now if you play out this battle, while it might not end up being a battle at all, Daniel Jones, though, will have gotten like 90% of the starting reps. And he will have gotten consistent reps day in, day out. Is that a spin cycle to say, oh my, Daniel Jones might actually get tangibly better here because he is getting real reps, he is getting day in and day out, versus an actual competition where it would have been a 50-50 split?
Yeah, I think that's the reason he's here, is because Anthony Richardson gets hurt a lot. And we saw it again this spring. And so I suppose the other way to look at that, if you wanted to spin it in the Colts direction, and I'm doing that for the purposes of this discussion, Anthony Richardson should have a head start on a grasp of Shane Steichen's offense already, right? He spent some time in that system, so he just needs to get himself physically right, and then when he comes back, he can start to get some reps, and then they probably do split at that point in time. But I think the whole reason Daniel Jones is here is because you just figure at some point in time, Anthony Richardson's not going to be available.
So I believe Kevin was kind of getting at just the fact that he's going to have more reps by far. And so if you're Daniel Jones, to Kevin's point, I think you got to be thinking there's no way you're getting this job back. You lost it. As soon as you couldn't throw in OTAs anymore, you lost week 1 starter.
And I could see the Colts thinking that too.
Yes, because they have to prepare. I mean, they have to prepare their offense and build things around people that are going to be there. And if the biggest knock on you, and there's been a few, some of the maturity stuff, obviously the accuracy, but the availability is the biggest one. And if we can't rely on you to be available even in the spring, then we probably have to prepare for the other guy.
Like, let's put numbers to this, James. Let's call it 500 starting reps that are available this offseason.
Okay.
Let's say it would have been 250 to 250. Now, Anthony Richardson got hurt on day 2 of OTAs. Day 2. Well, you and I watch OTA practices. A dozen reps a day, maybe a little bit more than that. So let's say he got 40 reps before he got hurt. I think that's a generous number, but let's call it 40. Now, all of a sudden, if you're going to go back to that number of 500, Daniel Jones getting 460 of those 500 reps versus Anthony Richardson getting 40. Yes, it hurts the competition. It hurts the splitting of this. It obviously significantly hurts the growth and development necessary for Anthony Richardson, but the spin to it would be, well, Daniel Jones is getting 460 of the 500 reps, and Daniel Jones needs to learn a new offense.
Right.
And he needs to be a guy that needs to make growth in his game. So none of these options that I'm saying out loud that I have like strong conviction about, but I do think that is, I guess, a somewhat benefit to the Jones camp of now he is your starter for X amount of time. How much can he tangibly get better as a quarterback in a new offense?
Well, the other thing, too, and James, you've seen this before, and Kevin, you have too, with Daniel Jones getting all that work, if he ends up getting, as you said, 460 out of 500, let's say, the other thing about sports and teammates is it's not personal. Like when you're hurt and you're out and you're not in the huddle, guys don't stand around going, man, I wish so-and-so was here. I wish so-and-so was here. They're just doing their job, and they start to get comfortable with the guy that they're with all the time. Now, when AR comes back and he steps into the huddle, they can welcome their teammate back. But believe it or not, they don't all sit around going, man, if only AR was here. They do their job, and they start to get used to doing their job with Daniel Jones under center and making the cadence and making the calls and changing the plays and doing all those kinds of things. They get very comfortable with him as well.
Yeah, it's called being a pro, and that's what they have to do. And you can't sit around, to your point, Jeff, and wallow in your misery or sorrows because they're thinking, either way, my family has to eat. And you talk to a lot of those guys who go out there on Sundays and put their body on the line. They're like, look, I got to make sure my people are good. Now, I would love for you to be out there with me, but if you can't be available, then I got to keep this train rolling without you. And that's just the reality of the sport in any league, really. One quick thing I do want to make before we obviously get ready for Rick Carlisle. I know there was a report from Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated that Anthony Richardson will go revisit the doctor who did his surgery on his shoulder, Dr. Elatrach. Hope I'm saying that right. Neil Elatrach.
Elatrach, yeah.
Yeah, out there in California. He's like the shoulder guy. And, some of the fans are asking, hey, is this a bad sign? My personal opinion, this isn't a report. I don't think this is a bad sign. I think this is common sense. If you're feeling inflammation or you're feeling aggravation, or you're feeling pain in your surgically repaired shoulder, all of us in this room would go back to the surgeon who performed whatever surgery we had. So this, to me, is just a natural step. Now, what goes on from there is to be determined, but that, to me, is not sort of red flag where I'm freaking out. It's just common sense to me.
If they had like a little small cleanup procedure, would they report that, do you think, Kevin? Or would they just kind of go along the off season and get him ready to go for camp?
I would assume that would get out one way, shape, or form. So, yeah.
Otherwise, we talk to Anthony when he comes back and we'll say, hey, did you have anything done to your shoulder?
Anthony usually has been pretty forthcoming with a lot of that stuff, but that would be – this is already not a good situation for Richardson at all. That would certainly not be a good situation.
Well, you guys will be out there a little bit later on today. Lots of news happening with the Indianapolis Colts. We'll cover that throughout the rest of the show. But also coming up in a minute, the guys will have their weekly chat with the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, Rick Carlisle, stops by to get us ready to go for Game 3 of the NBA Finals. That one is coming your way tomorrow night, 8:30 tip, 8 o'clock pregame here on The Fan. Of course, JMV will be doing his thing from 3 till 8 for a 5-hour show. We'll tell you when, where, and how all that stuff takes place coming up in just a few moments. So hang with us. It's a busy morning here at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Back to practice later this morning for the Indiana Pacers as we await that first NBA Finals game inside of the city of Indianapolis in quite some time, and it is a Tuesday morning. It is 8 o'clock, and we always appreciate the time Rick Carlisle gives us, and he is on the Payless Liquors hotline with us right now. Coach, good morning to you. How you doing this morning?
Just fine.
You mentioned exiting game 2 that you feel like you guys have been too reactive so far through the first couple of games in this series. When you say that, do you point more to slow starts or just reactive in terms of it's Oklahoma City dictating to you guys more than you guys dictating to them?
Well, slow starts mean that you're behind, and so you gotta try to get back into the game and all that kind of stuff. And so, look, we haven't played well enough. We were fortunate that we've won one of the 2 games, but I think we've been outscored in 7 out of 8 quarters, and so we got to do better.
Rick, when you look at Tyrese, who obviously always is going to be scrutinized or criticized or whatever, given his status on the team and his status in the league, how do you grade his performances when it comes to aggression and things of that nature?
Well, it just depends on the game. I mean, I thought Game 6 against New York was one of his best games as a Pacer and one of his best games probably as a player in the league, because it was just an approach that was all about aggression and process. And then he put himself in a position as the game got into the fourth quarter to continue to be aggressive, and he just found ways to attack and get other guys shots and get the ball in the basket. So, as far as scrutiny and all that other stuff, I mean, this time of year, if you want noise, you can find it anywhere. We've got to selectively avoid the noise and concentrate on what's important internally, which is the energy that we spend on each other. And we've got a very, very difficult opponent here that we need to focus the most on.
Rick, when you look at the fourth quarter from Tyrese the other day in Game 2, are there things you can look at and say, okay, this is maybe what we can carry into Game 3, or how much stock do you put into the game-to-game differences that can occur in a series?
Yeah, you look at everything, but this question is a good example of how everything is analyzed and overanalyzed in a series. Well, first of all, in a playoff series, but now you're talking about a championship series, so there's even more. Looking at every little thing, because every game, with the exception of one, is a 2-day break in between. So there's just all this time to analyze and reanalyze and overanalyze, and we got to make sure that we're keeping things as simple as possible in terms of what's best for us.
Rick Carlisle with us here again. Pacers back to practice later today. Game 3 coming up tomorrow night, 8:30. You can hear that right here on our airwaves. You kind of brought it up there, Coach. You mentioned the little things and all the extra time that comes with playoff series, particularly the finals. How as a staff do you guys decide, no, this is what has got us here, we're going to stick with that, versus the, hey, wait a minute, we got to adapt or die, that sort of mentality. This is not the opponent we've seen all season long. I would find that to be one of the more challenging things in playoff series, sticking to what you've done versus adapting. How do you guys as a staff kind of go about that?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into specific strategy. That would be foolish. But I think one thing that is important to note is that so often a playoff series will hinge on the basics, and there's so much talk about adjustments from game to game and series to series that the small adjustments, meaning Okay, maybe this isn't a small adjustment, but going from 19 or 20 turnovers in the first half of the first game to only 15 in the second game. I mean, that's a significant improvement, but there are other areas where we fell quite short. So, I mean, the basic possession stats, as we've spoken about many times in this show, are so important. The taking care of the ball, the turnovers, the points off turnovers, and then the rebounds. We out-rebounded them in the first game, but we had 20 less shots because of all the turnovers. So they didn't really have a chance to rebound as much. And so you can, put all that stuff in a blender and regurgitate it all day long and get into all kinds of conversations about this or that. But look, transition defense wasn't good enough in game 2. Points in the paint, we're at a big deficit there, and we got to do better. So we got plenty of things to get better at.
You mentioned points in the paint. Those numbers in game 1 and 2 pretty low compared to where your average was during the regular season and even the postseason here. What has that told you about what you guys are getting or probably not getting offensively?
Well, it's obvious that we're up against a unique opponent that was historically great in this area. Not only have they taken the paint away, but they've also forced turnovers at a historically high rate. I think that they, in the playoffs this year, somebody mentioned this stat to me. I don't know if this is exactly true, but they're generating 24 points off turnovers per game in the playoffs. So that's an enormous amount. And so you do that. You give up those kinds of points in the paint by turning the ball over. You're going to certainly compromise your ability to get the ball into the paint. So, look, a lot of things need to go better for us to get our points in the paint number up. We certainly are glad to be coming home, but that's no guarantee of anything because this team's been wiping people out on the road all year. So a lot of work to do, a lot of things to keep looking at. But as you mentioned, overanalyzation is, can be a detriment.
Rick, to that point of perhaps over-analyzing, we saw Tyrese with a significant limp leaving the podium after Game 2. Do you have any update on how he's feeling or things like that?
No.
Thank you. And then moving on to just OKC when it comes to SGA and the way he approaches the game. I don't know how to describe how he kind of slithers through the lane or through the paint, but have you ever faced a player or looked at players throughout their careers who has that spatial awareness to the level that he has, where he kind of feels like he always knows where he is relative to others?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great player, and he's the MVP. So, he is really great. There's other guys that have done similar stuff. He's pretty unique, though. James Harden, when he was in his, in Houston, and Harden still's doing it, is a similar type guy in terms of getting the ball places. And there's many others. Steph Curry does it. There's a lot of them. There's not a lot of them, but there are some. And the ones that are historically great, have the ability to score the ball and get the ball places. And he's also a great passer. So this is another challenge that's staring us in the face.
Rick Carlisle with us here. Pacers again back to practice later this morning, 1-1 this series as they will get ready for Game 3 coming up tomorrow night. Reminder, Game 3 tomorrow night, 8:30. Game 4 is that shorter turnaround. That is Friday inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Mark Dagnall, Coach, mentioned at the start of the series he offered a kind of certainly was a compliment to your team, and that he felt like one of the things he's struck by the most is no matter who checks into the game, he feels like your guys play with a ton of confidence. How much of that do you view it as just that's just how an individual is wired, and how much of that do you think is a kind of a conscious approach for you guys as a coaching staff that they feel confident no matter the environment?
Well, certainly one of the goals in coaching is to work with your team and have a team that is confident. And so, look, over the years, there's a lot of things that I've learned about that. I mean, I think Oklahoma's got the same, the same features to their team. And you coach hard, you talk in the affirmative. We try to talk in the affirmative about what we need, what we want, not what not to do, and avoid talking about don't do this, don't do that, and so there are things, but look, we've got exceptionally great people in on this team, on this roster, and part of this organization. So that's a huge part of it. They've done the same thing. They've over the last 5 years, what they've built there and how they've done it is a real model, for every NBA franchise, and Kevin and Chad have done some things that have set the pace as well. So I think it starts with great people, and most coaching staffs are going to do a great job in the area of developing confidence, and of course, having talent is a big part of that.
Rick, last one from me, first home game this franchise will have in the finals in 20 years. How do you expect Gainbridge Fieldhouse to be, and what's the excitement level of, having a basketball crazed state who packs out that Fieldhouse for, high school games and things of that nature all the time, just do it for the NBA Finals for the first time in over 2 decades?
Well, it's 25 years, not 20.
I'm sorry, yes, 25
that's
years.
One thing. Yeah, I mean, this is an exciting time, locally for sure, and this is an opportunity to state really the obvious, and that is that we need our fans. I mean, we need this building to be an absolute place of insanity, because that's what Oklahoma was. It was the loudest building, loudest road building that we have heard, and it created an advantage for them. And so we're going to need our fans, and we're going to need all the noise that we can get. Again, it's a historically great opponent, and we need every little edge that we can find.
I think on the list of people in the building coming up tomorrow night, Coach Jeff Foster was on with Jake from Noon to 3 here yesterday, and he mentioned that he will be in town for the game. He also told a story about his first workout as a Pacer with you, I believe Zonta Bach he mentioned, and he said the night before that workout, he decided to consume 24 White Castle burgers before that workout. Is this a story that Jeff Foster ever shared with you, perhaps over the years?
Not about the White Castles, no. But I will say this about Foster. Foster is one of the ultimate warrior type guys that you would want on your team. He was a soldier as a player. He was a great competitor. He was a great defensive player, and really, I don't know, like on rebounds per minute, I mean, he would have to be up there in conversations for some of the best rebounders that have ever put on a Pacer uniform. One of my favorite guys that I've ever been around. I was around him for I think a year or two as an assistant coach with Larry when he first got here, and then I left and came back as the head coach, and I remember this well because when I came back as the head coach, talking to Donnie Walsh, and they were talking about trading him because he hadn't played that much. And, I was like, well, before we do that, I mean, I think we should, have training camp and all this other stuff. I said, I told Donnie and Larry that, this might be a guy that we need to start, next to Jermaine O'Neal, because of his versatility defensively, the rebounding, the toughness, and the speed. One of the fastest runners I've ever seen for a 6'11" guy. So the way it happened was he ended up being a starter. He finished his career as a Pacer. I don't think he ever played for another team, and was beloved by the fan base. So, I'll look forward to seeing him. He's been in touch with me on text, as we've gone through this run, and like a lot of our alumni, he's very tuned into it. So it'll be great to see him.
Energy level Feisty Foster would be welcome certainly tomorrow night, not only for the Pacers, but for the 18,000 in the building. Coach, as always, thank you. Good luck tomorrow night, and we look forward to chatting next Tuesday.
Okay, thanks. Take care.
Rick Carlisle right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Feisty Jeff Foster. I couldn't believe when Jake said it yesterday, James. 4th all-time in games played for this franchise. Wow. I would assume a re-signing of Miles Turner would push Turner above him at some point, about 120 games, if I'm looking at it right, 122 games separate Foster and Miles right now. But yeah, Reggie 1, Rick Smits 2, Vern Fleming 3, Jeff Foster 4, Double D number 5, and Dale Davis, and then Miles at 6.
Wow. 2 things from that. 1, Reggie Miller, of course. 2,
no one is getting to Reggie.
No one's getting to Reggie Miller. But Miles, to be that big of a player, because big men don't play usually this long, this well. So, he's getting up there in age. I'm going to start calling him an old man pretty soon. But, no, it is cool, and I would assume they do want to bring Miles Turner back. We heard the Shams Charania report the other day about going into the tax potentially this offseason. So we'll see where that all kind of shakes out. But for now, obviously you can tell Rick Carlisle's locked into Game 3.
So your wow was not the 24 White Castle burgers that Jeff Foster consumed before the workout?
No. That to me was just poor decision planning.
How many do you think you could put down? Like if they put a case in front of you, a case of 30, would you knock all 30 down?
How old am I? Because my
you
metabolism,
are current age, Kevin Bowen.
I'm turning 36 here in a few months, dude. I swear my gut grows every day.
So let's go here then. I'll do the opposite. Prime Kevin Bowen, college Kevin Bowen.
I tell you what, man, I thought I was on top of Everest at the age of 22. I thought I could eat anything, and I feel like I somewhat could.
Yeah, most people probably can, yeah.
Mark, to go back to your question, your first ever NBA workout. I'm thinking if I had 10, I'd be in the trash can, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine Rick Carlisle's just coasting through the first workout here.
If you're prime Kevin Bowen and you're going to work out,
I think I could.
Without puking, how many do you think you could have?
I'd like to think I could sniff a dozen, but that just might be the dumbest statement I've made in the history of my
life. You need to do a White Castle challenge now or something.
Being the skinny guy,
they are
small.
I got
like 8 for you.
They're small.
But they've got some bite to them.
But they catch up to you.
They caught up Jeff
They
Foster.
are delicious, but yeah, they will catch up to you.
That might be Foster's greatest accomplishment, more so than being, 5th all-time.
You heard the way he was, Rick Carlisle said he was running, and man was trying to run to make sure he could, didn't stay still too long.
Boy, Rick is spot on, though. Yes, Jeff Foster's ability to run the floor at that size, second to none. So thank you to Rick Carlisle. That will be up on the podcast. We'll wait, James, again, it's a morning practice today, so expect kind of around noontime to get, to see if Tyrese Halliburton will practice. But I thought Rick's first answer just kind of summarized where I'm at right now. So many people just want to say, oh, Pacers are 1-1. Let's kick the feet up.
Yeah, he
Rick
definitely did not give that vibe.
We haven't played well enough. We're fortunate to have won one of the 2 games.
I think he also mentioned they were outscored in some of the 8 quarters.
Right. So that right there, I could easily sit here and say, hey, guys, Pacers are 1-1. Let me kick my feet up for the next 3 hours and repeat that for 3 hours. But I'm not going to. Yes, 1-1 is obviously the position that you like to be in, and you feel good about that. But the product we've seen through 2 games, if that product shows up tomorrow, if that product shows up Friday, if that product shows up Monday, hell, we might not get to Rick a week from Tuesday in terms of, talking to him again with this series still alive. So I think that is the exact mindset that Rick Carlisle should have, and frankly, that's where I'm at right now.
Absolutely. Like you said, we'll see later today if Tyrese is practicing. For those who were in the YouTube chat saying, hey, you should have asked him if he was practicing. Yes, I know. It would have been a better question. I'm learning as I go. I'm not always batting 1,000 here, but I do think, the question about Tyrese's aggression, the fourth quarter, those are ones that Rick probably wisely kind of sidestepped because he doesn't want to give away any tactical talk or tactical, nuances before Game 3. But the bottom line is you need your best player to be better than he has been outside of that fourth quarter in Game 2 where the game was pretty much in hand. I mean, you can go, hey, fourth quarter of Game 1, they made the comeback, he makes a shot. Yes, he was engaged, he was involved. Fourth quarter of Game 2, game is over, but there were some signs there of perhaps some things you can do differently. But the bottom line is I don't care which way you slice it. Obviously, we're not on a coaching staff, but they have to do something as, a coaching staff and also as a player. And Tyrese has taken on himself to say, I'm not going to be taken out of a game when this is the NBA Finals.
Again, coming up tomorrow night, that is an 8:30 tip. Pacers right now a 5-point underdog in this one. Joel Erickson from the Star going to join us coming up at 9. It's a busy day from a Colts complex standpoint. We'll hit on that and a few other items here in this morning checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
James, let's actually start tonight in the ATL. The Fever will be down there taking on the Atlanta Dream. So far, they've split with Atlanta this season. Still no Caitlin Clark, still no Sophie Cunningham as well. The Clark update from yesterday. Do you have any optimism about Saturday against the Liberty based off what you heard?
I do, but to hear Stephanie White kind of say, hey, we're still kind of ramping things up, I was thinking, wow, she hasn't, what has she done on the court? Now, she was, I believe, a limited participant in practice yesterday, so we'll see what that means for the rest of the week. But in the meantime, it is Ari McDonald time, and she's been very, very good for this team.
Very good. Yeah,
very good.
Very good.
Dog.
I've been impressed by her this year. 2.5-point underdog for the Fever. But, yeah, basically on Clark doing some things in practice, ramp it up. They're preaching the long term, so now the reevaluation period has been met, and her absence, while she's back at practice, will continue for at least another game. Over on West 56th Street coming up later today, day 1 of mini camp for the Colts. That is a mandatory practice. Again, Daniel Jones, the expectation is he takes the starting reps with Anthony Richardson sideline all week long. I guess anything curiosity, mini camp practice-wise for you before we get to the other news?
I mean, a lot of it has to do with just what does Daniel Jones look like when he's the guy, and how does the team respond around him? Now, there's other position battles going on. Who's available? That's always kind of our thing with attendance and things like that. But, I mean, all eyes are going to be on QB1 for now, which is Daniel Jones.
I always like getting to this point in the offseason, James, because assuming the Colts follow the same training camp schedule, we now will get to watch them for like 15, 20 straight practices.
Yeah.
Once you get here, so far it's been a little spotty, like
right.
Once a week. Now we can, string together ones. And I just feel a little bit more like conviction in, talking about what we've witnessed at practice. The other news item from the Colts, yesterday we did see that transition of ownership as expected. Carly Gordon will be the principal owner. Her sister's taking on different titles as well, and Casey Foyt and Kaylin Jackson. But as expected, Carly will be kind of the lead person, if you will. We will hear from all three of them coming up at 3:30 today. So I know there are some questions. When exactly would we hear from the daughters? And they will meet the media coming up after today's minicamp practice. So we'll have plenty of content for you coming up tomorrow on the show. I really didn't have anything else from an item standpoint. I did want to mention this. Did you guys see that Darius Garland news from yesterday?
Yeah, that was disappointing.
Like, I always find myself just laughing when, like, there are fans out there that, like, question what these players are playing through. And
yeah.
I'm probably speaking to Cavs fans right now. I think there was a lot of, like, wait, you can't play because of a toe? And now it was announced yesterday that Darius Garland's toe injury will need surgery, and he will likely miss the start of next season. Yeah. We're talking about a dude that gutted it out, tried to play against the Pacers. I would say he wasn't the most effective. And now it's a toe injury. It's going to cost him 4 months.
Yeah, no, I've had big toe injuries before, and from playing basketball, not to that degree, obviously, to have surgery. But I would just tell anybody, it's like when somebody messes up their pinky, and people are like, it's just your pinky. Dude, if you break it or you mess it up really badly, your life changes a lot. You forget how much you need that thing. So, for the Gary, Indiana native, I hope that he has a, safe and full recovery, and this isn't something that lingers later in his career.
Mark, that F1 news from overnight that could impact potentially viewership from an Indy 500 standpoint. Those that missed it, the schedule for 2026, F1's not messing around. They say, we don't care about any Indy 500.
Yeah, F1 confirmed overnight that the Canada Grand Prix will be held on the same day as the 110th running of the Indy 500 on May 24th next year. It says, with Montreal now following Miami on the F1 calendar to improve the series' sustainability efforts. And IndyCar folks, unsurprisingly, none too pleased with that news.
Yeah, and again, Monaco was like, what was that, like an 8 a.m. start time? Yeah. Something like that?
Yep.
You know, the Canadian Grand Prix, considering it's the same time zone as us, they're 2 o'clock for what it's worth this year. I don't know. Maybe if it got to 3 or 4, you wouldn't have any bump up with the 500, but still, that is a definite change in the F1 schedule. And I believe I could hear Brendan King running naked through the Butler frat last night as his Florida Panthers went up 6-1. They won 6-1, I should say. Now up 2-1 in that series. Any rooting interest, Mark, for you there?
I love BK. I'm rooting for Edmonton. I would like a Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup. It's been too long. I like the Oilers a lot. Big fan of Connor McDavid. So, yeah, I'm pulling for Edmonton.
Yeah, honestly, I just want it to go 6 or 7. You know, to me, once like the Pacers, once the finals are over and once we get through the NHL, I'm like, damn, man. Our sport viewership,
I know.
Go be a family man.
I mean, and I think Maddie would admit it. I mean, some of the trash that Maddie wants to watch, I'm just like, oh man, do we really have to watch?
Yeah.
You know, Love Island this or
dude, I'm going home to see my family, and my mom and sister love that show.
Oh God,
I couldn't understand it.
That's why this deep
I'm
Pacers
like,
playoff.
Rosie's coming down because she can't sleep. I'm like, Maddie, they're barely wearing anything on the TV. Can we please at least pause it?
This deep Pacers playoff run has been a blessing because, otherwise it's like, God, we're in the doldrums right now. We'd be counting down days till training camp for the Colts.
NBA draft 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Love is Blind.
Mm-hmm.
Show is nuts.
Yeah.
I'm like,
my
these
wife
people
is
are
watching
insane.
some like polygamist thing. I'm like, what on earth are you watching?
Yeah.
I have to watch this when you go to sleep because I know you're going to hate it. I'm like, yeah. That's probably a fair assessment, actually.
Mark's like, should I be nervous about this? Much more on what Rick Carlisle said, and could the Colts be in the market for a linebacker with some familiarity with Lou Anarumo? We'll hit on that on the other side. Fan Morning Show here on a Tuesday.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Calling my shot, guys. This might be Happy Tuesday to everybody, but I'm just looking forward to a Victory Thursday. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay.
Let's go. I mean, that 5 points, to be honest with you. I think the Pacers will play their best basketball to date in this series tomorrow night.
They're going to need it. I certainly think that their approach as of late, especially in Game 2, did not work very well. But, yeah, I don't mind that take at all, Jeff. And this is a team that has responded all year. But I almost feel like they're both two forces kind of running up against each other because the Thunder have been outstanding on the road throughout the playoffs as well. So something has to give tomorrow night.
Any specific changes you think we'll see, Jeff, and why they'll play so much better?
Yeah, I do think that there will be some adjustments to the way we've been talking about it this morning, that Tyrese Halliburton not only attacks the front court, but I think that they will, for a team that likes to freestyle as much as they do sometimes, I think that there will be a concept for them to run a lot of screens to get him open, to do some things to get him the ball with a little bit of space, which is the one thing he really hasn't had so far. Other than that last 7-8 minutes of the first game, Oklahoma City has really done a nice job of not letting him be in the flow of the game.
Very good point. And I think that's one of the things with Tyrese where weakness maybe isn't the right word for it, but he doesn't create space to the level of other players who are all NBA or we consider to be stars. Now, that's not to say he isn't a star, because I think that he does things that other players can't do when it comes to vision and passing and manipulation of the eyes and things like that. But I don't know if, like to your point, Jeff, like give him the ball one-on-one, break this guy down and just get a shot is his game. That's not his game. And so they have to figure out other ways to kind of get him into the flow and really just get him to be a scoring threat earlier in the game. Now he has to make the shots. You can get the shot attempts up. Got to make the shots, keep him honest. And if he can do that early on, maybe that changes some things just as far as the flow of the game, because right now, the last two games, they've been chasing from behind. To Mark's point just throughout the show, you kind of want to be even at some point as well. Just kind of show yourselves, hey, we can hang with this team rather than having to claw back every night.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Like, Tyrese Halliburton is, and every time I hear the word elite, for some reason I think of Joe Flacco. He is an elite shooter. He is an elite passer. He has elite vision. And when you combine all that, it's what makes him so special. But, like, he's not elite at creating space individually. He's not elite at playing through contact. You guys remember the play in overtime of the Knicks series when he finished at the rim through Josh Hart?
Yeah.
And I was blown away by that play the next morning. Like, of all the plays the Pacers had in that game, I was like, whoa, can you guys believe? I mean, that was like a Russell Westbrook finish at the rim, or Anthony Edwards. I'm trying to think of some of these powerful guards that make those plays. Obviously, Westbrook, I'm dialing it back 10 years ago. But that is where, when he finds the crevice of an advantage, he exposes you. But creating that crevice is an area that you wouldn't call his strength. So I think that is where others are going to need to help out here coming up tomorrow night. And when I say others, it's coaching staff included. Again, is Andrew Nembhard on the ball more? All of that needs to be there.
Well, it's going to be fun to see what the adjustments coming out of the gate are. Obviously, Rick Carlisle like giving that stuff away when you guys spoke to him a moment ago. But KB, what was your big takeaway from that 15-minute discussion with Coach?
He loves Jeff Foster.
As much as Jeff Foster loves White Castles? I mean, I've never heard that story before. How does Mark, could you even eat 24 White Castles at any point in your life?
Yeah, when the metabolism was still,
24?
at the level of James Boyd, yeah.
I mean, I know they're not full-size burgers, but 24?
Yeah.
It was a great interview. I encourage you to check that out. Query and Company up on the show podcast. Enjoyed that, Jake and Jeff yesterday. I guess I kind of said it when we signed off with Rick, and I know the podcast will be up, but just right out of the gate, we haven't been good enough. We're fortunate to be 1-1. James, you brought up the 7 of the 8 quarters that they've been outscored. That, I think, is an honest assessment of where the Pacers are at through 2 games. Yes, it is 1-1. It is now a best of 5 with home court. Having said that, let's dive deeper into the 2 games so far. You haven't been good enough. And in order to make 1-1 become 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, you must play better. So I thought right away, right out of the gate, Rick said it, and I think that's probably the message he's relayed to his team here and will continue to do so as we get closer to Game 3.
I am looking forward to seeing if the Pacers can really take control of this. They've set themselves up for it, as they did in the previous 3 series. Can they take advantage of that Game 1 win on the road, set themselves up for the rest of the series by just protecting home court, which is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, certainly against this team, the Thunder can win anywhere and against anybody. They've proven that all year. So it'll be certainly I believe this is a must-win game for the Pacers in Game 3. Now, feel free to tell me I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, by all means.
They'll tell you.
I certainly appreciate that from Pacers fans. But real quick on Tyrese, when we were able to, chop it up with Rick Carlisle, and I asked him, hey, Tyrese, how do you feel about his aggression level the fourth quarter the other night? A lot of it, he reverted back to saying, hey, we're overanalyzing. It comes to scrutiny, noise, got to block that out. But as much as I appreciate Rick's perspective, the reality is it's not necessarily, at least in my opinion, this is just me, an overanalyzation when we can see the trends. When Tyrese Halliburton scores 20, they're 32-4. He doesn't score 20, they're 27-28.
Such an amazing stat.
It is what it is. So
it's reflective of the style of play, though. Is what
exactly.
It is.
So I do think that there are some things. Now, he's not going to reveal those. I certainly don't think he's going to tell us, hey, this is what worked in the fourth quarter. We're going to use that set and run this play at the 3-minute mark of the first quarter of this game. But it is something where I don't think it's necessarily an overanalyzation. It is just what comes with being a star. Stars show up in the finals, and they show up on the biggest stages. And he's going through his star turn. I don't know if he's arrived yet. I don't know if this is the peak of Tyrese Halliburton's powers, but it comes with the territory to get scrutiny and kind of get called out when you've kind of been absentee, at least in my opinion, throughout most of the first 2 games.
And how much of that is just what Oklahoma City's done, though, as much as
like
as
I said,
what he's doing.
I think he has a hard time dealing with physicality. When it comes to more physical defenses, the longer defenders, those are the ones that are usually able to kind of get him off his rocker. And how do you counter that? Obviously, you can't just tell him, hey, go be as strong as Ron Artest was back in the day in Game 3. That's just not a reality for him. So how do you counter that just scheme-wise, tactically, and then from a mindset standpoint as well? Because I do think there has to be some part of Tyrese that tells him or tells himself, I'm not going to let them take me out of this game. Because he knows when he's doing something for his team, or when he's kind of floating and he's out there. So we'll see.
Kevin, we talk about how good defensively Oklahoma City has been all year long. We talk about historically, how good are they? They remind me a little bit of a Bill Belichick Patriots defense in that they just take your best. Just like they did. They didn't let Jokic become a playmaker. He would score, but they didn't let him become a playmaker. They didn't let Anthony Edwards dictate the flow or the pressure or the pace of play, and they've not let Tyrese Halliburton, other than those magic 7-8 minutes in Game 1, they haven't let him do his thing. They're really good at not letting the best player in the other team be themselves.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go on this island just yet, but TM, shout out to him in the YouTube chat, it got me thinking here. He brought up the analogy of, are we seeing a little bit of Ty Law kryptonite to Peyton Manning? And again, I'm not ready to go there just yet, but I rattled off the 4-game stats to you guys in the 7 o'clock hour for Tyrese Halliburton against the Thunder this season. It's pedestrian for him, especially. And so, again, we'll see. There's a long, long way to go in this series. It is about adjustments, and there are ebbs and flows. And, Ty has had moments, certainly throughout his playoff career, where he's had quiet games, and that hasn't defined his entire series. But the thought and the analogy, right now there's a little bit of merit to it. And we'll see how you can rewrite that narrative here coming up tomorrow night and through the rest of the series.
It's Fan Morning Show with Kevin Bowen, James Boyd. I'm Jeff Rickard, Mark Dykton over there. Mark, I believe it's time for a ticket giveaway for the Indy 11 coming up this weekend, right?
4-pack of tickets at Carroll Stadium against Pittsburgh. So if you want them, 317-239-1070.
Friday or Saturday?
Saturday.
Saturday, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. So, 4-pack. You want to go hang out at Carroll Stadium on Saturday night? There's no NBA game that night. Might be a great way to spend an early summer evening out there. So
right.
give us a
Recover
call.
Father's Day weekend.
Recover from Game 4 on Friday night and then get out there for Saturday.
There
get Dad a Father's Day gift.
239-1070 is the number to call. Just screw the number up, too.
Let's try it again.
238-1070, something like that.
Lord.
What? I said 239-1070.
239, yeah, you said 238, though.
I thought the first time I said 239.
You're all over the map. 239-1070.
Man, am I Kevin? A little ruling there? Did I screw up the first time?
I'm just like, can we just go to a break at this point? Let's regroup and talk about the Colts.
Let's do it next.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Just messing around with a little parlay for tomorrow night. Assists right now, over-under. What do you think Tyrese Halliburton right now is listed as the over-under for assists tomorrow night?
7.5.
Kevin?
I was literally about to say that. Yeah.
Mark?
7.5, 8.
8.5.
8.5. Did you already look?
No.
Good job. 8.5.
Played the Price is Right game. I just went over a little bit.
SGA is 7.5, by the way. Just in case
What are Tyrese's points?
Player points right now it is, and I'm looking on FanDuel right now. SGA's over-under is 33.5. Tyrese Halliburton, what would you say?
17.5.
Mark?
What did you say, 17.5? 18. I'm playing the over again.
Oh, 18.5.
There you go. Damn it. I went second.
Kevin wins, 17.5.
It's amazing that Shea's at 33.5. Like, just, and I don't disagree with the number, but just that a human being can have an over-under in points of 33.5 in an NBA Finals game. He's a special talent. James, Jermaine Pratt, Bengals veteran linebacker. I don't know if the official release happened, but sounds like he will be released if he hasn't already. I bring up that name. Lou Anarumo obviously comes from Cincinnati. Pratt had really been there. I don't know if Zaire Franklin's too much of a compliment, but, had kind of been their lead linebacker, communicator, tackler, et cetera, et cetera. We have seen the Colts operate here the entire spring without a veteran linebacker signing. Do you think we see something here? We saw Gus Bradley sign a lot of players that he was familiar with background-wise, or do you think the Colts will continue to kind of ride it out with the very unproven linebacker group they have, minus Franklin?
Yeah, this is something they should definitely kick the tires on and check and see if it could work. But I just wonder, for a guy of his caliber, Jermaine Pratt, would he be a starter in Indy, or would he be willing to accept a role perhaps not being a starter? That's a big question for me, because his resume would suggest that he probably should be playing somewhere and playing a lot. So here's what our Cincinnati Bengals reporter, Paul Dehner Jr. said. He said Pratt is responsible for one of the most memorable moments in team history and was a centerpiece of great championship defenses. He deserves better than what he got on the way out. He requested a trade. They didn't give it to him. Typical Bengals. But, he was the centerpiece on two of those defenses that went to back-to-back AFC championships.
It's interesting that Cincinnati just doesn't seem to be taking care of their defensive players at all right now, right? Everybody's mad on that side of the ball, aren't they?
Yeah, I was like, everybody but Joe Burrow and, the offensive guys, there's not enough money to go around, I guess, but we will see. There other news coming out of Cincinnati is that the reports are Trey Hendrickson will not show up to mandatory minicamp, which falls in line with kind of their standoff throughout this offseason. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. And for Colts fans who are asking me, hey, what does that mean for the Colts? Could they go off Trey Hendrickson? In theory, yes. In reality, I think it's very slim to none when it comes to that possibility coming here to Indy.
So it doesn't seem to be a massive sense of urgency to add a linebacker to getting back to the Pratt thing.
How do you feel about that?
I don't think I agree with it. They
get on the couch, Kevin. How do you feel about that?
They just operated the entire spring. I mean, because look, they're starting their minicamp in 4 hours. So assuming nothing happens here in 4 hours, they just went through the entire spring very content with no Zaire Franklin and no Jalen Carlisle. Offseason shoulder surgery for Carlisle. Remember, Franklin had that ankle cleanup back in early May. The hope is he'll be back for the start of training camp. We'll see if he misses any time at Grand Park. But, James, I don't know about you. When we have watched the last two OTA periods, it is rather incredible when you go out there and you see who the starting linebackers are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wait, who? Do I need to go grab a roster here? I mean, so it is easily the most unproven position on the roster from a veteran experience standpoint. But, yeah, it just doesn't seem like there's been an urgency to add to that position really at all here in the offseason. And remember, I think under Anarumo, they will pretty much play two linebackers. I don't think you'll see a lot of base defense with a third linebacker out there. But Franklin's health, Carlisle's health, I do think that's a little bit of an under-the-radar storyline exiting the spring.
It just feels like a guy that's played at a high level and been as successful and a captain and everything as he was in Cincinnati for Anarumo. It just feels like natural at this point in time, doesn't it?
Yeah, but again, how much treads on the tires?
Yep.
So you sign him to a 1-year deal and you see what's going on if you can.
You would
I don't
think
know.
Anarumo knows him best, right?
Yeah. So
I mean, how old is he, James? Is he 30?
Let's look it up.
I think he's getting up there a little bit in age.
29.
So
Just turned 29 in May.
yeah. So yeah, we'll see. Linebacker wise, how things continue to evolve there. But right now, the Colts have been very, very status quo from a Cameron Grown, the LC product, Liam Anderson out of Villanova. Was it John Batchy? I think is who they signed. Kind of more of a special teamer in his background. So we'll see.
All right. We'll talk more about the Colts coming up in a few moments. Joel A. Erickson, Indy Star, is going to stop by. And later on in the next hour, we'll have another 4-pack of Indy 11 tickets to give away as well. Stick around. It's the Fan Morning Show. James Boyd, Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton. I'm Jeff Rickard. Thanks for being here on a Tuesday morning.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Welcome in, 9 o'clockers, to the Fan Morning Show along with James Boyd, Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton. It's time to welcome in Joel A. Erickson from the Indy Star to the Fan Morning Show on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Good morning, Joel. How's your Tuesday starting out so far?
Well, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Looks like the sun's out. That's a good sign.
And you're going to be very busy along with these two guys to either side of me a little bit later on today out at West 56th. What is going to happen out there today?
Well, you got the start of mandatory minicamp. We all knew that was going to happen. And then, the other thing is obviously we get a press conference after practice with Carly Gordon, Casey Foyt, and Kalen Jackson, the three owners of the Colts, as made official yesterday.
Joel, how much interaction have you had with Carly in particular throughout the years, and what do you expect her leadership style to be like when she is now the principal owner and the one that will probably make more of the football decisions when it comes to this team?
I haven't had much. We've exchanged pleasantries a couple times. That's pretty much it. I'm interested to see what she says today, what everybody says today in terms of how they see the organization right now, because obviously it's been driven by Jim Irsay for so long. It's going to be interesting to find out how they see it, through their eyes after, essentially they've been a part of this for a very, very long time and a significant part of it. But, Jim was making the decisions. I think that's the interesting part, is to see how they see this team. I think for fans, the most important thing is, how do they see this team right now, and what does it mean for the principal decision makers going forward?
He is Joel A. Erickson. He's with the Indianapolis Star. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Joel, let's go back to the Anthony Richardson news from late last week. What is kind of a dominant thought that you have had, exiting that news of, we know Richardson, right shoulder, aggravation of the AC joint, doesn't need surgery. It'll be Daniel Jones here this week as they close out the offseason program, and we'll see when the return happens during training camp. Have you had a prevailing thought with Richardson and I guess Jones as well, given that news?
I just keep thinking, and I actually need to give credit to my editor, Nat Newell, for this, because he thought of it first, but it's been stuck in my head ever since he said it. He reminded me that the whole point of having the surgery at the time was to prevent issues in the future. So that I think is what sticks out to me. And I don't pretend to be a shoulder specialist or a doctor or anything like that, but that was what my understanding of the surgery was he was having the surgery to prevent further issues in that joint. And now we have further issues in that joint for whatever, and it doesn't sound like it was related to another blow, and so that is a bit of a concern for me.
You think? I don't know. I'm trying to look at the calendar here. Like, what dates do you start to get nervous about if you're in the Richardson camp? Like, August 7th is the first preseason game. I guess I'm asking a little bit of when do you think Shane Steichen would like to name a starter? You hate to start counting reps this early, Joel, but I don't know. I just have a weird feeling like if this somehow lingers into August, boy, I just feel like he's got a ton of ground to make up. And at some point, you would think Shane Steichen would want to say, hey, let's just commit to Daniel Jones and have that, hard answer for what the week one starter will be.
Yeah, when you mentioned the preseason opener was August 7th, I think my first thought was August 1st. This thing starts on July 24th, I believe, is what I'm expecting the first practice to be. So that would be a week into camp, but it's essentially a week away from the first preseason game. And if he's not back, if he's not on his way back, it does feel like guys who end up in that situation at other positions end up kind of behind the eight ball as far as coming back. Now, I think it's a little bit different at quarterback because Richardson was picked number 4 by this franchise, and clearly there's an investment in seeing him succeed. But the longer an injury lingers in the training camp when you're in an open position battle, the worse it is, especially at the quarterback spot.
Joel Erickson, Indy Star, joining us here on the Pay Less Liquors hotline, talking about the Indianapolis Colts, who go through another mini camp later on today. Jermaine Pratt, released by the Bengals earlier this week. We were talking about the fact earlier that the Colts seem a little thin at linebacker. This is a guy who's played for new defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo before. Any possibility that they kick the tires on that and take a real look at that, or are they set at linebacker going into the summer here?
I've tried to look into that. I haven't gotten anything back yet in terms of something hard. I think that you'd have to look at it. This is a guy who is a veteran. He had a lot of missed tackles last year. He also had 143 tackles last year. And to me, just the lack of experience in the rest of the linebacker room. It's really just Zaire Franklin as far as somebody who's got a lot of experience in that room. And on that spot, I also think that, Lou Anarumo wants to play matchups and wants to have options. And right now his options at the linebacker spot are essentially limited to Zaire Franklin, Jalen Carlisle, and Hunter Wooler if Wooler is much more ready than we expect a seventh-round pick to be. I just think you'd want more experience at that spot, and Pratt, having played his entire career with Anarumo, it just feels like it makes too much sense.
Joel, I'll go here. Beyond, obviously, quarterback and then linebacker, as we just discussed, what other position groups are you looking at in this veteran minicamp to kind of analyze, as well as perhaps kind of get a preview of position battle-wise come training camp?
Yeah, the hard part is, you want to say offensive line, but we're not going to learn a ton there this week. I think corner is the one that jumps to mind. We know from Shane Steichen that Justin Wally has really impressed. The rookie has really impressed early on. That's a position where there's a lot of dudes. There's a lot of guys in the mix at that spot. Now I think Anarumo wants to play a lot of dudes at that spot, but there's a lot of guys in the mix for roster spots. I think this is a good chance to see that. It's also probably a good test for those guys with just the different skill sets the Colts receiving group provides. So usually in this mini camp, you have to focus on the passing stuff. And obviously Tyler Warren is one of them. But that cornerback position is pretty interesting to me because it's suddenly got a lot more numbers and a lot more competition for roster spots with guys who are either proven or have something significant invested in them from a draft pick perspective, battling it out for roster spots.
Joel, what do you think would make them sign another quarterback?
You'd have to know that Richardson was out for a significant amount of time, because even if he is out for the first 2 weeks of training camp and it feels like it's going towards Daniel Jones, I think you still feel like if you get him back with 2 weeks left in training camp, you have a backup quarterback who can run some of the same stuff Jones can do from a running standpoint. And also, we're at a point in the off season where there's just not a lot of quarterbacks available. You kind of get in a spot I think about when Andrew Luck retired and they needed a backup for Jacoby Brissett, and really they just kind of had to take whichever veteran quarterback was released at that point because everyone else had been scooped up. And I know it's a couple months ahead of that, but we're kind of in that same spot already because you snap up the backups and you get those guys that you want in there. And so I think that you probably have to weigh, in the event that Richardson's injury is lingering, it's got to linger closer to the regular season before you start thinking about signing somebody, because who you're going to sign is going to be underwhelming compared to just the history you have with Richardson as a known commodity.
Did I hear you correctly? You called Great American Ballpark and your experience there one of the greatest that any fan could ever have in a visiting ballpark.
I enjoy Great American Ballpark quite a bit. I enjoy it quite a bit. My sons and I.
Not just because your team kicks the Reds' ass every time that you go.
I do think that helps. I do think that helps.
Wow. I think he just took a shot at you, Kevin.
I mean, rightfully so.
Well, Kevin took the shot first.
Yeah,
I was just I was just acknowledging it.
I don't want to tee for you.
But we discovered something last week. If it's hot and you sit in the right center field seats, my sons like that. They're aware enough that if you're wearing visiting team's gear in a home stadium, the opposing outfielders might throw you a baseball. We didn't get one last week, but what was right there on a hot day is the mister is right behind you. And like my sons were going up basically every half inning and just coming down dripping wet, and they thought that was great. It was like a little hack if your sons are in the, elementary school age range the way mine are.
Joel, 3 boys. Mark, 3 girls. I've got 2. Max Bowen last night. He'll be 3 in September. We're attending the Little League baseball game of our nephew, and all of a sudden we show up, and who's there? It's Rowdy.
Oh,
and we
look
go
at
over. We say hi to Rowdy, and boy, you would have thought Max Bowen saw Bowser at the doorstep of his castle. He was just so freaking afraid. The Erickson boys always been Rowdy fans. The Dykton girls always been Rowdy fans.
Huge Rowdy fans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never had a fear factor of Rowdy?
No.
Okay.
Not a one.
The Erickson boys, 2 of them had early, the youngest 2 have had periods where they didn't like mascots. And I have one, KB knows this, but my youngest, Watley, is pretty much right around the same age as Max Bowen. He turns 3 in October. And up until last year, he was not a mascot fan at all. He was like, I don't know if I really want to be in this picture. At one point, he gave Bernie Brewer the cold shoulder. The mustache freaked him out last summer. But early returns this year are that his confusion with the mascots has passed, and now he thinks they're pretty good. The one he's seen this year was the Wahoo in Pensacola at the minor league field that's on the water down there.
Oh.
And he wanted like 6 high fives from him.
Okay.
So
could be turning a corner is what you're saying.
Yeah, and that means Max Bowen may not be far behind.
Well, and we had a very tumultuous 12 minutes with Boomer earlier this season. I felt like it was a 7th grade relationship. We wanted nothing to do with them. And next thing the paw of Boomer made contact with Max Bowen's hand, and next thing you know,
oh no.
I thought Max wanted to go hug and sit on his lap. So, again, we're a bit Jekyll and Hyde, hot and cold. Rowdy apologized. Great for Rowdy to come out on an off night last night. But yeah, we're kind of in that stage right now.
Does Max Bowen spend his time at Little League baseball games trying everything he can do to get on the field? Because that's what Watley does.
Yeah, we're a big like rock in the pocket. Last night I'm taking off his shirt. I'm like, why do you have 13 leaves in your pocket? How in the world did this somehow get in your pocket and now you're bringing them home? So, we're not out on the field. I guess out on the soccer field a little bit more than out on the baseball diamond right now. But luckily we can entertain him just running laps, behind home plate.
Watley, last weekend we were in Evansville with my oldest, who plays for Fisher's Express. We were in Evansville for a tournament. Actually, technically, the part we were playing at was in Henderson, Kentucky. But we were in Evansville, and the older boys decided that Watley's dance was their celebration for big hits. So they would get a double or a triple and look at the dugout and imitate the 3-year-old dancing. It was awesome.
I love that.
Good
Absolutely
stuff.
love that.
Joel, thanks for stopping by. Have fun over there at West 56 today, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You bet.
Don't be late.
Ooh.
I'm teaching 2 kids to drive right now. I will tell you this. The Easter Bunny was not popular when they were toddlers. They did not want anything to do
Let's be
with
honest.
a 7-foot bunny.
The Easter Bunny
when they were like
a horrifying look.
They were 18 and 35 months old at the time, and
Looks
they
like
were
that Providence Friar mascot.
I think my mother-in-law took them to see the Easter Bunny. They were not happy.
You said 18, 35 months. When do you stop using months? 35 months is a lot of months.
Well, just pointing out that they were close in time. Still, He was still under 3. They were two kids under 3.
What's the rule as a parent? You
only
all know?
24 months.
I think once you get to a year, boy,
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever said Max's. 23 months or 19 months. I don't know. Maybe I should.
It's just pointing out that they were both under 3 years old at the time. Neither one of them wanted the Easter Bunny. Anything to do with it.
James, any surprise over the Zaire Franklin tweet yesterday? And there was some context behind it, but Zaire Franklin saying that Michael Pittman Jr. will be the first individual he fights during training camp this year.
No surprise there. I think it's either Zaire and Pittman or Zaire and Quentin Nelson, because they always get into it too every training camp. But no, the context there is that I believe Zaire Franklin owns a water ice, if you want to call it that, establishment here in Indiana. And apparently for Michael Pittman Jr., one of his children had a birthday party recently. They used the
rival
water ice company. So, Zaire went on, I believe it was with Kay Adams, and he was saying, hey, I got beef with my teammate. So not a lot of beef there as well. He did say that he also had some beef with Tyler Warren, because Tyler Warren went to the rival water ice place as well, and he was like, you're never going to see that 44 again. So all in good fun. I know people can get a little funny when it comes to Zaire, but just getting those competitive juices going.
First day in pads, 44 and 11. They'll be getting into a tussle. There's really nothing that Michael Pittman Jr. needs to get into a tussle, to be honest with you.
No, he is fascinating to me because he is so nice and light and just has his levity about him when he's not on the field. But then he turns to this totally different person. Like, he is
just release.
Yeah, he's a crazy man on the field, and I think that's part of why he approaches the game the way he does.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun over there to see how they go about their business over the next week or two. And again, everybody's going to be focused on Daniel Jones to the extent that you guys will be able to see him. How much will they let you see this week?
We watch everything. Yeah, so we watch every practice now until Grand Park ends. Typically is how the offseason schedule goes. So, yeah, let's say they have 15 practices at Grand Park, 3 this week. We get to watch 18 in a row here. So, yeah, I mentioned this earlier in the show. I always kind of like getting to this point of the offseason because so far we've only been able to watch one practice each of the last 2 weeks. Now, you can say, okay, this is what Daniel Jones has done 5 straight days. You just start to get a little bit more evidence stringing days together. So 3-day minicamp beginning later today, and typically the Thursday practice is extremely abbreviated.
Can I give a shout out real quick?
Yes.
Happy 72-month-old birthday for my daughter Emma today.
Emma, happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Emma.
birthday, Emma.
I believe for you math majors out there, that's 6 years old.
6 years old. Yeah. Middle child, 6 years old already.
Okay, now you're going to start making me do the math. Happy 60-month-old birthday on Thursday to Rosemarie Bowen.
I always remember that Rosie and Emma are very
close.
Very close birthdays.
Yeah.
I hope they don't fight over whose ice shop they went to.
No. We already spent enough money at Disney World. We're not going to any ice shops or anything like that.
Did you guys just go to Disney?
No, we saw my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They live in Florida and everything, so that's always another reason to go too. But obviously, the Mouse House is a big positive for the girls.
I'll be Emma's negotiator. We're going to have to get a little more out of Dad come birthday.
How much more do you want from
negotiating
me?
on behalf of every kid in here, man.
Yeah. Y'all ain't asking for enough. Your parents are doing well. They've been accomplished adults. It's time to, invest.
All right. We're going to invest in a few minutes of local sports news right here. We call it the check down.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It's another day off for the Indiana Pacers as they prepare for Game 3 of the NBA Finals, taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder tomorrow night. 8:30 tip time at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Series tied at 1. Airtime, 8 o'clock with Pat Boylan on the pregame. Of course, JMB, I think he just broadcasts 24 hours a day now.
Yeah, he plays basketball and he does radio. That's all he does.
Man, oh man. Game 3 coming up tomorrow night. Biggest thing that has to change for the Pacers, Kevin, is what?
Kirk, you made me laugh. Kirk says I'll be 792 months coming up later this year. I believe that's 66 years old if my math is correct. So happy early 66 to Kirk there. What needs to change? I think, again, getting into the paint, handling their pressure better. The points in the paint numbers have been very, very poor individually. Obviously, that's Tyrese Halliburton. And if, indeed, they're able to continue to limit Halliburton, can Andrew Nembhard be more of a catalyst? I said at the start of the series, I thought Nembhard was the most important Pacer, not of the obvious bunch. I thought Game 1 he was really good, a little quieter. I felt like in Game 2. So those would be some areas I would point to.
All right. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever are back on the court tonight. They'll be on the road in Atlanta, 7:30 tip time, and that's also the air time for the game. But, of course, The Fan pregame show with Eddie Garrison comes your way at 7:15. It'll be the 5th straight game without Caitlin Clark. Are we getting close to getting her back from that quad strain?
Getting closer. I don't know how close exactly. They were non-committal about her potential return yesterday when Stephanie White met with the media, but Stephanie White herself should be back on the sidelines in Atlanta tonight.
How about Sophie Cunningham?
She's out as well due to a ankle injury. So that'll mean more minutes for Aari McDonald, who is on a hardship contract. And to just kind of give you all the quick rundown, basically whenever Sophie or Caitlin Clark comes back, Aari McDonald must be released. And so she's kind of auditioning basically for other teams at this point with how well she played for the Fever.
And she's played very well. It's too bad that they have to let her go at this point.
It's one of
So
those.
they keep her and cut somebody else?
I believe so in theory, but the way the contracts work, it's not as cut and dry as that, if I'm not mistaken. It gets into the weeds, but it's not as simple as that.
All right. We can tell you the Indianapolis Colts are back at West 56 today, start a mini camp. What do you expect to see other than just Daniel Jones getting all the reps at quarterback, James?
I think I'm very curious to take another look at the cornerback battle, the position there. We haven't seen Travarius Ward, I believe, in team activities just yet. So maybe he gets into some of the action today, the big-time cornerback from the 49ers. And then on top of that, just kind of figuring out what do they do at linebacker because both of their top linebackers are out, and Jalen Carlisle and Zaire Franklin. So who else are going to get these reps to perhaps kind of solidify themselves as the backup going into the season?
And I'll add just one more note. We definitely have seen this around the NFL. TJ Watt already today, Trey Hendrickson already today. You occasionally will get the contract issue guy sitting out the mandatory portion. Remember, this time 2 years ago, that's when Jonathan Taylor got in front of a mic and didn't sound like Jonathan Taylor. He started to be very vocal about his contract. You go back, Kenny Moore II, I had one, a couple off seasons ago. I'm not expecting anybody. I don't know, maybe Bernard Ryman.
I was about to say, at this point, we're playing all the hits, so go have at it.
Bernard Ryman is also one that, I can't imagine would have too big of an issue with that.
Also in the NFL yesterday, Jermaine Pratt, released by the Cincinnati Bengals. The linebacker made 88 starts over 6 seasons for the Bengals. He was 9th in the NFL in tackles last year, Kevin. 2 fumble recoveries, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions. 29 years old. Is that somebody who played for Lou Anarumo in Cincinnati, who's now the defensive coordinator for the Colts, that they might be interested in?
Yeah, there are a lot of reasons to kind of say, okay, this checks, but the Colts have really been hesitant all offseason long to sign, I would say, a true proven veteran at linebacker. So I don't know. I'm not necessarily holding my breath that this is something that they will necessarily do. And if you aren't going to do it today, then I guess you just kind of ride it out to the start of training camp. And, who knows? Maybe Zaire Franklin's health could impact. If you're going to get a week or two into camp and Zaire's still not out there, maybe then you would feel a little bit more urgency to add to that position. But so far they haven't. So I don't think it's as big of a slam dunk as it maybe looks on paper.
All right, Major League Baseball yesterday. The Philadelphia Phillies beat the Chicago Cubs by a score of 4-3. Also, it was the Reds with their 4th straight win, Kevin Bowen, over the Cleveland Guardians by a score of 7-4.
Don't look now, but here come the Red Legs.
I might need to get a red Speedo.
Oh, Lord. The Speedo.
What would constitute that, like a 20-game winning streak?
Collection here, man.
Mark, have I showed you the speed? I said I would wait after the second Pacer win before buying the Speedo.
Mm-hmm.
Have I showed you the one?
You've not, no.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he was kind of missing you last week because when he showed us, our reaction, I guess, wasn't up to par.
It was underwhelming?
Yes, it was underwhelming. So he really wanted you to be here to support him.
I think it's a really good, throwback kind of Reggie Miller-looking jersey Speedo.
Yeah?
So here's my quick question.
This might be a stretch.
I hope it's still in stock. Maybe it's not.
If you get a red Speedo, how many Speedos do you have, and do you just roam around the backyard?
I have one Speedo.
You just roam around the backyard in that
beautiful
thing?
Kelly green Speedo.
Are these one-off, like you wear them one time and that's it, or?
Well, it'll be saved until Notre Dame wins it all.
Oh, my gosh.
Hey, they got there last year.
I don't know.
I support you, brother.
Thank you.
Also yesterday, Toronto.
Mark, here it is.
There we go.
It's called Men's Glimmer Brief Gold.
Oh, that looks glorious.
Doesn't that look great?
See? And that's what he wanted last week from us.
There's the back shot of it in case you're looking. And there's the side shot in case people are, don't get a great angle of it on the circle.
That leaves not much to the imagination.
We have someone in the YouTube chat asking, is it a homemade Speedo like Jeff wanted?
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Now, I'm a little worried, guys. My sizes here, they're listing 22, 24, 26, 28, and 30 is the only left in stock.
Are those waist sizes or
Boys, if those are waist sizes, your boy is going to be struggling here.
All right. I was going to say something I can't say on air, but yes, those are waist sizes.
Size 30 means a 32 waist. Boy, I haven't been in a 32 waist in a few years.
Oh, boy. Well, that could be even more, you're going to be seeing a little more than you were hoping to see then.
Now, in the
heat,
heat, it expands. Is that correct? And in the colder weather, it shrinks? Is that
Well,
how
it definitely shrinks in the cold. I can tell you that.
All right.
Talking about the Speedo here, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Take me to break, Mark.
Sure. No problem. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This, honestly, my favorite 15 minutes of the week. When Evan comes by with cluster
Look at
truck.
that Mark's face. We knew it.
I don't care.
We knew it.
I'm good with it. It's good stuff. It's great. It's
Outside
fresh.
of spending
it's
time
healthy.
with your family, just to clarify in case they're
I'm
listening.
talking about
or-
on the show.
Oh, okay.
On the show.
No. He meant what he said. The
No,
heart
no,
speaks
no.
truth when
No.
there's cluster truck
It is
in our vicinity.
Dunk Fest time at Cluster Truck. I cannot endorse this more. We got this Saturday night of the Final Four. Loved it. Back on the Cluster Truck menu. 2 pounds of chicken strips and chips and queso and an order of cheese bread and a little churros for dessert. Ooh. All of that $29.99. My kids love the chicken strips there. FAN is your promo code, FAN. But during the NBA Finals, so each night there's a finals game, you can get that Dunk Fest. So if you're having people over, chicken strips, cheese bread, chips and queso, churros, $29.99. Can't beat it.
I like that. My boys, the one thing I do like more than cluster truck, and my boys, just so you know, James, they love the chicken strips, man.
You gotta play this audio back for them later today.
You know how
to
Mark,
make sure.
You know how Mark cuts audio, and you are screwed.
It never quite comes back the way it was initially. How's that work?
No.
How's that work, Mark? Everything's out of context.
No, your description of lines still lives rent-free in my head.
Oh, Lord. I will say this, though. Moving on to more important things when it comes to our coverage here at 107.5 The Fan.
Not only was it long, but it was deep and wide. People excited.
Oh, boy.
You have to know who you're speaking
I didn't clean
to.
anything up there.
You have to know who you're
That wasn't
speaking
edited
to.
at all.
When it comes to Pacers coverage, I do seriously want to see if
James with a beautiful transition.
Yeah, I'm
He's
trying.
trying
man.
hard.
I'm trying.
You are.
Tyrese, the availability later today at practice, and really, when they let the media in for these practices towards the end, there isn't much you're really watching outside of shooting. From what I've seen, from what Scott Agnes and others have posted on the ground, I don't believe I'll have a chance to stop by today because I'm going to make sure I'm over there for the owners and practice and things like that over at the Colts facility, but. Just how he's moving around. That is a big concern for me. I know Rick Carlisle was non-committal, didn't want to really go near it. And that is something that if he is compromising any position, it will affect the series, undoubtedly.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things, too, right after the end of a long, hard game like that. Sometimes your muscles are a little strained. Maybe they're borderline cramping up, and you just need fluids and a good massage, and you're good to go the next day.
Yeah, and he's 25. I mean, unless it's, like I said the other day, unless you need to be amputated, this limb needs to be removed, he'll be out there for Game 3, and most likely, at least in my opinion, probably going to just tough it out. And at this point, everyone's dealing with something. So in case it's, something just, I don't know, soft tissue or whatever, he'll be, I would assume, okay to go for Game 3. I just want to know, again, how close to 100% are you when you have to also just play better overall against this Oklahoma City Thunder team?
Mark, let's go ahead and cue up the Jiffy Lube stat of the day because this is a topic we've had throughout the show, and I have found this interesting. I pitched to you guys, do you view Game 3 as a must-win? You guys say, okay, if you're 2-2, do you still have a chance to win the series, even if you lose Game 3 and then win Game 4? Found this interesting from Scotty. In the last 8 NBA Finals series that were tied 1-1, the Game 3 winner, they've won the series just half the time. So the magnitude of Game 3 is a 4-4 record when these series have been tied 1-1 over the last 8 different instances of that. Now, you probably would have to get a little bit deeper into the weeds there of, okay, how many times is the home team, having Game 1 versus the road team? How many times did the home team lose Game 1 versus win it? But, I mean, tomorrow is big, but I don't know. I still think if you're 2-2, I still think you have a chance to win the series. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I mean, the Pacers have won on the road once. I think they can win on the road again. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too optimistic.
One of the things sometimes when they make that transition from city to city, it's not always this long, but when you have 3 or 4 days in between, kind of stops momentum. And I just feel like if you take that time off, as well as Oklahoma City played in Game 2, especially in the first half, and you can just kind of stop that momentum and then put them back on their heels again with a win in Game 3, I think I really believe that that's important for the Pacers to do in this particular series.
Yeah, they have to be the aggressor. I mean, too much in this series so far, they've been reactionary instead of, taking the action to the other team. That is something that I believe Rick Carlisle's kind of harped on the last few days and certainly will be a point of emphasis in Game 3. But to go back to Scotty's, fun fact or Jiffy Loop stat of the day, the other part of it, the first sentence of this that you kind of left out, the winner of Game 3 has gone on to win the title, and when it's 1-1, 33 times as opposed to losing the series 6 times overall. So, you can tell yourself or kind of trick yourself into saying, hey, you lose Game 3, you'll be fine or whatever. To me, it's a must-win for this team. They have not trailed in a playoff series so far this postseason. OKC has. They've responded each time to get to the finals. You don't want to experience that again, or for the first time in this run, for the Pacers. They pulled it off last year against the Knicks, being down 0-2 and then winning in 7. But I just believe this OKC team is too good to have them lead the series and not win it.
That last game, too, Oklahoma City had 5 guys that really stepped up. Obviously, SGA had the 34 and 8 assists, but, Holmgren was really good. Williams was really good. He scored 19. And then off the bench, we saw Wiggins was terrific. Caruso was terrific. And even when they had Hartenstein in there.
Caruso's killing the Pacers.
Yeah, his numbers weren't huge. But my point is what the Pacers need to do, though, they need to have 5 or 6 guys on Thursday morning that were listed off that all had really good games. Yeah, that's what they need to get back to.
That's who they are when they're at their best. But I also think that, to give the Pacers their flowers here a bit, they've done, I believe, an okay to pretty good job of making things hard on the other guys when it comes to Jalen Williams and Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, because those two haven't shot the ball all that great from the field, and especially Jalen Williams. He's the other all-star on this team. You kind of forget that. They've held him sort of in check, and can they kind of keep him sort of off kilter in Game 3 and then perhaps just find a way to keep, SGA from totally dominating the game? Because to me, when he has the 34, okay, that's fine. He's averaged 30, by the way, for the last 3 years in the NBA, which is nuts. But it's the 8 assists that makes it really hard to slow that guy down and stop him, because when he's scoring at that rate, facilitating at that rate, it just leads to, obviously, a lot of good things for OKC.
Yeah, it just feels like with the Pacers win, we'll be talking Thursday about both Siakam and Halliburton scoring 20 points, maybe another 15 or 16 from Miles. Nesmith gets you 12 or 14, and you get 1 or 2 guys off the bench that get you 10 or 12. It feels like that's what you're going to have if you're talking about a win in Game 3, because to his point, that's kind of who the Pacers are. They got to come at you from a lot of different places.
Here's one real quick. I would love if Scotty found this out. Maybe we could be the Jiffy Loop stat of the day tomorrow. When's the last time you had 2 back-to-back games in the finals where a team doesn't have a 20-point score?
I thought that was yesterday, wasn't it?
It was yesterday.
I'm sorry. That is.
I think that was a 2013 Heat.
Okay. Because I remember he told us that the 2013 Heat were the last team to win a game with no one scoring 20 points.
I thought that was them again.
But to have the back-to-back, that's crazy. I'm like, man.
Could be wrong.
They need to, obviously have somebody crack that threshold. And again, I'm going to keep yelling this stat to the moon. 32-4 when Ty scores 20. 27-28 when he doesn't this season.
Yeah, again, you guys have pointed to a ton of individual players, and I'm nodding my head at a lot of that. This is a little bit more of a gray area, but I just think right now the Pacers offense is going too lateral. It's too east and west, and it's not enough downhill. I know that sounds more football-y than probably basketball-y, but points in the paint probably speaks to it. If that's the one stat that can turn my gray area comment into a little bit more black and white. They have 34 points in the paint on Sunday. 34 points in the paint in Game 1. They average 49 a game. So, that to me is a big indicator of you are not getting to higher percentage shots or looks enough. And again, that is, every time we mention one of these Pacers stats, I think it has to be met with, there's a reason for this. That's because the Oklahoma City Thunder can guard you.
Yeah,
no other. I want to make sure, all of this gets back to conversation yesterday. I tried to hammer home. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton's being as passive as much as he's just not been good. Why hasn't he been good? Because the Thunder are a very good defensive team. So that's where I point to through 2 games. They've been the better team. They've certainly been the better defensive team. How can you counter that now in Game 3 and beyond?
To that point, Kevin, I truly believe that the narrative I would say the majority of fans don't think this way, but a few of them I've you get the rumblings and you're like, oh, man, the Pacers just looked like they were okay with taking just one game in OKC. No, they didn't. It looked like OKC was really good in game 2. That was my reaction in game 2. It's not an effort thing, not a focus thing. It is the team you're facing is arguably the best team in the league, and they're here for a reason. And so it's not going to be easy getting through these finals, but certainly something has to change for you. And just to double back real quick, yes, the Pacers are the 8th team in NBA Finals history, according to Scotty from yesterday, to not have a 20-point score in either of the first 2 games of the finals. And then they were the first team since the 2013 Miami Heat. Now, the good news there, you're going to say, well, 2013 Miami Heat won the championship. So perhaps this slow start is a precursor for better things to come for this team.
Well, still all tied up at 1. And so we got game 3, and somebody will take the lead in that series coming up tomorrow night.
I'll be in there.
Coming up in a moment, we'll tell you a little bit about what's happening with the Colts right now, and also a little bit of F1/related Indy 500 news.
We got beef.
We do it. We have big. Everybody's got beef. Forget the Colts beef over ice shops. We got beef. Beef and broccoli is what we're talking about right here. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
That means Kevin Bowen. That means James Boyd. It means Mark Dykton over there on the ones and twos. Congratulations, 2 days in a row. We appreciate you being here. Thanks for that.
PTO by the end of the week. No, I'm just kidding.
You got to be.
I honestly wouldn't have been surprised.
Oh, man.
I'm here for a while.
We've been talking about kids all day long. I may just adopt Evan Sherrill as my long-lost nephew.
Oh.
Just something that
I
I'm
was
ready
going
to
to
go
say
there.
kid for a while, but
No, he's a full-grown man adult.
Either way,
You'd sit on Evan's knee and say, "What do you really want for Christmas?" He said, "That Korean beef and broccoli." That'd be what it would be.
Probably not sitting on anybody's
Evan.
knee, but
Evan Show from Cluster Truck for those unfamiliar.
Yes.
But yeah, Evan is a great human. And again, the Dunk Fest special: chicken strips, chips and queso, churros, cheese bread, every finals day. So again, Pacers playing tomorrow. Pacers playing Friday. You can order that $29.99. Great items, plural, if you're having people over to watch the game.
And we've been talking about Colts and Pacers all morning long, and we'll finish with something on the Colts. But real quickly, Mark, you had reported earlier today that, well, not you, you were reading the report.
Oh, he broke
overnight.
the report in his sleep last night.
He broke something.
My burner account, yeah.
F1 switching their schedule around essentially to take a direct shot and compete head-to-head with the Indy 500, it looks like.
Yes, if you missed it earlier, it said F1 confirms that the Canada Grand Prix will be held the same day as the 110th running of the Indy 500 next year on May 24th, with Montreal now following Miami on the F1 calendar to improve the series' sustainability efforts. And Indy folks, none too happy, which I don't blame them at all.
I've loved waking up in the morning and watching the last half of the Monaco Grand Prix before I dive headlong to the Speedway.
I'm not going to lie. I'll have to take your word for it because I'm so new to this. I didn't know that was a tradition. So maybe I'll try it next year when I'm up at the crack of dawn. But certainly not something that you want to hear if you're an Indy 500 fan.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, if you're attending the race, I mean, does anybody actually have time to be doing all that? I mean, unless you're watching at the tailgate.
I guess, yeah, maybe to pass the time, but
Like,
I
you're
don't
in
know.
your car.
Well, here for us, we have the long full-day broadcast that starts at 6 in the morning. But when I was not needed, and generally it's all Tony Katz and JMV, and I might do a 60-second thing here and there, so there's not much for me to do there, if anything at all, in the morning. I go up to the press floor there on the fourth floor and just watch the race with some of the other journalists, and I don't know. So I've always enjoyed that.
Jeff, did you go to the race this past year, or
Yeah, just
Okay.
briefly.
Gotcha.
I don't get in the traffic for the drive home unless I'm working.
So what time did you get there?
I got there about 7:05, 7:10, something
yeah, I
like
have to
that.
get there at the crack of dawn next year because that was the most amount of humanity I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
What an experience.
Yeah, if you don't get there early enough, then you get pushed out to the overflow parking lots and end up walking a long way, which I don't mind, but I'd rather not.
But speaking of environments, though, I am excited for tomorrow night at Gamebridge, first home playoff game, or home finals game, rather, for the Pacers in 25 years. That place was rocking the last time we were there for Game 6 of the conference finals, and I expect it to even be louder tomorrow because, I mean, who wouldn't want to be a part of that atmosphere? So if I see anybody who is fortunate enough to have some tickets, man, say what's up. I'm looking forward to this for sure. It's a bucket list item for me, and we'll see if the Pacers can get it done.
I was talking to a friend that had bought tickets to 3 and 4 like last week, thinking they were making money, like that aspect to it.
Okay.
And I think the actually secondary ticket market, and trust me, let me be very clear here, considering the bar of where I was at, it's actually gone down a little. Like, I remember looking when the finals started, and Mark, if you could look up Game 3 for us, I believe it was $1,100 I saw for the cheapest ticket for Game 3, and I want to say that has dropped somewhat decently last I checked.
Looking right now, the cheapest ticket is for Section 210, Row 20, $692.
Think about that. I mean, it was $1,100 at one point, and it's what for tomorrow?
$692.
Now, again, $692. Look, let me be very clear. That is still insanely expensive for the worst seat in the house. But the ticket prices have definitely gone down. I would assume Friday night, especially with the Pacers win, those would go up. But yeah, if you're curious what the secondary ticket market looks like, there you go.
What's
What's
couple
Friday,
of days
Mark?
ago?
What's sorry?
What's Friday?
Let me look. Courtside seats.
I've got
though,
it right here.
Courtside seats available for $15,000 though. You guys want to go halvesies? No. Okay.
I mean, if I can move in afterwards.
So
you
this
know.
was a couple of days ago when the tickets first came out. I was looking at maybe Game 4 tickets, and I took a screenshot of the prices and the areas they were in, and I sent them to my wife, who said, "Hey, see if we can get tickets to one of those two games." at that point in time, Kevin, this was before the series started, you could get an amazing deal in the lower bowl, towards the top of the lower bowl, in one of the corners for $1,572.
But this was a few days ago.
I sent that to my wife, and she was like, yeah, no.
But this was like a week ago?
Yeah, this is right before the series started.
That certainly probably has changed since then.
Yeah, but I was just Kevin was wondering what it was like when the series started. And
No. I was wondering, what is it like now?
Yeah.
Game 4, Mark. You said Game 3 is at 6 something or other?
Yeah, in Game 4, the cheapest is Section 211, row 14, $820.
Yeah, I mean, the Friday night makes sense. It's a little bit more there, but those ticket. I mean, for what it's worth, those ticket prices have gone down.
I'll make a second request, and what do you think the answer is going to be?
No, maybe with a few more O's. No.
Yeah. Try your next wife.
Wow. Maybe I shouldn't ask at all, Kevin. I think that's what you're saying, right?
Probably.
All right. Thanks so much for Rick Carlisle again, stopping by as he does. And credit to him for stopping by every week, no matter what.
No, I really do respect that. Man of his word, calls every time. We know this about a minute early or 2 minutes early every time.
7:58 every time.
Yep.
He's terrific. He's one of those guys. If you're on time, you're late, apparently, because he's early every single week. I like that. All right, coming up later on today, Jay Query will take care of you from noon to 3. JMV has you from 3 to 6 right here on 93.5 and 107.5.